Welcome to the grand finale of Season 2 of the Quality Horizon 2025. This virtual summit has been created for you, the unsung hero, the quality champion, the professional who ensures customers smile when users experience your products. Today is all about giving you the insights that reflect the real state of software quality, and our goal is to help you rethink how your organization can achieve its quality goals at scale. We will dive into key trends, explore emerging technologies, and share team strategies that work. For instance, one of the statistics that we will analyze is, did you know that despite the rise of automation, 82% of quality professionals still rely heavily on manual testing? We will also tackle the buzz around AI in QA. And spoiler alert, AI will not take your job, people, but it will help you do it better. So more on that shortly. You will get a practical playbook for scaling QA in the enterprise. And also we will examine the business case for investing in QA and why companies that get quality right retain more customers and run leaner operations. We're going to talk about how QA is evolving from bug hunting to being an actual strategic driver for the business. So buckle up, folks, because today we have a high-packed agenda. Let me show you here what we have on today. We have 7 impact sessions, 12 expert speakers, and 7 amazing industry leaders. You won't want to miss any one of these sessions. So before we move on, I want to thank each one of you for being here today, because you are making this event possible. Here is the thing. Without the 1,500 voices that contributed to the latest State of Software Quality report, the insights that we're sharing today in this event wouldn't exist at all. So again, thank you for sharing your opinions. Thank you for sharing your voice. And with that, I am your host, Lucio Daza. I'm the VP of Product Marketing here at Katalon. You are the incredible audience, and let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to welcome Himalata Murugesan and also Sergio Ferri for this session that we're going to hold at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So welcome, Sergio and Hima. Hima, you're from LTI Mindtree. I'm sorry, and I forgot to mention that. Sergio, you're coming from X-Ray. How are you today?
Hi, Lucio. Good to see you again. I mean, it's very exciting to be on this particular forum, and I'm doing great. It's a lovely day. It's sunny, though, in Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of India. It's, looking for monsoon or rains. Hopefully, it arrives quickly.
Excellent.
So how has it been there at your end?
Here we have a beautiful sunny day in Florida. I cannot complain about that, but I'm curious to hear from Sergio. Sergio, how is everything going?
Cloudy. But nevertheless, it's very good to be here with you, both of you, and share some insights from the lovely town of Aveiro, the Venice of Portugal, as some of us call it. Beautiful. So very near the seashore, very good place to talk about testing.
All right. Hopefully we can hold the next Quality Horizon from Portugal, from that beautiful scenery that you're painting. So we're going to kick off this with a big one. This is again, we're looking at the trends and tools and teams insights of the state of quality in 2025. So in this session, we're going to unpack some of the most important findings from the report. We're going to look at the gap between high and low performing QA teams and what mature teams look like today and what it takes to evolve. So let's go ahead and keep things conversational to set the expectations to the audience. We have a couple of slides that we're going to discuss. However, I want to let everybody know that we're not going to kill you with statistics and statistics in or slides in PowerPoint. Just a couple of visual aids in there for you to take a look at. So let's start with the big one, the big divide. All right. So according to the State of Quality report, 82% of QA teams still rely heavily on manual testing, and 43% of them cite short releases as their bottleneck. And one of the things that what you're seeing in the screen right now is what we call the big divide. Only 11% of QA teams in the industry consider that they have what we define a high maturity level in their processes. All right, so they're well defined, they're structured, they're well planned, and and a great amount of those difference is they don't believe that their processes are managed and optimized. So the main question, Sergio and Hima, why do you think this divide exists, especially today? I mean, you would imagine that with all the technology that we have available and everything that is in the market, everyone would the maturity rates for everybody would be through the sky. Open question for either one of you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a very good question. And I mean, the statistics is really interesting. And, it gives a lot of, I would say, I mean, having done it across, it's a whole lot of information that one can gather and analyze kind of a stuff. And what I have seen, Lucio, in multiple projects, a lot of teams are facing these challenges where they have to find out whether we need to automate or whether we need to do manual testing. And what happens typically is that the leaders think by putting into automation, it's faster release and all those things without bringing the various components that will help it. It could be in terms of the right automation strategy. It could be in the terms of right skill set. It could be in terms of the infrastructure. It could be in the terms of the process being used to test legacy systems and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of dependencies that also needs to be worked out, and then only you can say that the team is performing at a high maturity or the process of high maturity or there's continuous improvement. Just having, a automation strategy alone is not going to help. And today, almost all organizations have heterogeneous applications. What I mean by that, you have an ERP, you have a web, you have, API, mobile, and all kinds of things. So unless your strategy is coupled with maintenance per se, the right skill set, the right tools, it is not going to help move into that maturity kind of things. Additionally, what we've also seen is while, you establish some set of processes, certain set of checklists and guardrails and all those things, if there is no effort is budgeted for it, either in terms of upskilling or in terms of maintenance of the automation scripts, it doesn't work out, and you can't call yourself you're in an improvement journey kind of a stuff. Added to this whole phrase, there are too many tools in the market. Everybody thinks that they are the center of the universe, right? And there are too many tools and platforms, and like what for me, if you see every other day, some of the other tool comes, which is the name of an elephant, name of a vegetable or a name of a animal, and I really don't know whether it's a tool that they are talking about or it's some a vegetable and animal. So there are too many such things. Legacy systems are still there, old processes are being there, which is forcing them to do manual, and sometimes there is a fear of change. They're not willing to let go some of the old process, which is also creating that kind of bottlenecks. So you can't get into a continuous improvement and maturity without, having many of the components working, and it has to be in a flywheel actions, and which ends up the teams doing firefighting, drained out and burnt out and whatnot is the way I look at it. So, the statistics impressive. Sergio, you want to add anything on?
Yeah, sorry, I'm curious about your opinion on this as well.
So for me, it was surprising to see like the percentage of teams that are like considered to be like low maturity. Surprising up to a point, right? I know because I've worked with many different teams throughout time, and in fact, as Emma was mentioning, legacy is a very, very strong problem. Not just legacy code, legacy frameworks, outdated frameworks that people cannot really bump to update to a new version, and many times all this inhibit like testability. And talking about testability, many teams they don't have like the concern with testability right from the start, and especially if you are working in a big organization, old school, let's say, kind of organization. They think that, okay, anyone can do like automated tests at any given point, and they don't think that they need to actually work out like the testability from the start. So that is like a point to me. And also, sometimes all this mix of technologies, libraries, causes confusion, and also that leads to blocking testability. But at the same time, on the report, I see like maturity just being perhaps like a shift towards automation. And I think it's interesting to reflect a bit on that, because for me, it's about doing that wisely, right? And also having in mind like a risk mindset. So where can we think about adopting automation that brings the most value? And sometimes it's not just really on the test automation part, it's about improving some parts of the process, even the build process, that can support, let's say, test automation afterwards. Maybe you have to work with the dev team to improve, let's say, testing from the start, right? And for me, mature teams are also teams where you can upskill the testers with this deep technical expertise, also around the toolings and around the technologies that are used nowadays. But most of all, about having this quality mindset that is broad, right? Thinking not just about the tests themselves, but about the whole process. How can we improve in order improve the whole software development process in order to enable quality?
Have you worked on a project where test automation you had to implement it from scratch and you found like difficulty adopting this new approach?
Yeah.
Is there anything like that you can tell us about?
I was in a big company whose name I cannot mention, and it was like there was like this big department, and the challenge there is that they had like a mix of hardware and software, and they were doing like continuous manual testing, right? And the builds were like manual. They were like hard coded on the heads of some developer. So I was assigned to go there and try to implement test automation and CI/CD. But how can we implement test automation whenever like the people, the leadership thinks this is not possible? We don't have time to do it. So I didn't work directly like on doing like automated test scripts right away. I look at the blockers. And first, let's try to automate, first of all, the build process. Let's make that, repeatable. Let's put that in a CI/CD tool like Jenkins, right? So the build process is all done all the same. Then let's work out with the software development team to enable testability. So, for example, they had like a telnet client that we could easily adapt and build an API on top of it that we could then implement test automation using that telnet, let's say, kind of vector. So that was like a quick win. And then we start using BDD, sort of BDD, Cucumber, and now I'm talking about vegetables, to implement a keyword-driven kind of testing approach, not BDD. So it was not, let's say, 100% correct, but it enabled the teams to implement some sort of test automation. So we need to actually look at where the team stands and starting addressing the main blockers, and then start growing from there.
And that goes very well with something that Hima was saying earlier about like it's just not about like jumping in and doing and implementing automation up and down, right?
Oh no.
And
yeah, she's totally right.
Hima, can you tell us a little bit about like have you seen any particular automation practice or strategy that you have seen work well in teams that are trying to scale?
Okay, I mean, first thing, the team needs to have a clear vision or a goal or some kind of a project kickoff, bringing all the team members on the same page and alignment to the goals, right? So this is one of a very good practice because everybody knows what needs to be done, and this way it becomes easy to row the boat in on the speed at which you want to get into clarity. And also when there is a cohesion within the team, right, there is a lot of bonding, and there is also a kind of understanding of what kind of practices need to be in, what kind of strategy can be brought in, whether you want to go for in-sprint automation or whether you want to go adopt BDD, non-BDD kind of thing, whether ABC tools wants to do kind of a stuff. So it really gives the clarity, to the team. And once there is a leader, right, and he understands that, the enterprise, he also needs to look at what is the enterprise vision is also, it's going to be the technology landscape, and enable the team members to, ensure they're upskilled or enriched towards those skills. So these are certain things which definitely helps in a long way. And today, what I've seen in oftentimes, especially these large clients, enterprise clients, they have done a lot of things on the legacy system, and suddenly they want to adapt AI, Gen AI. It's not like, you were going in a bullock cart and suddenly you want to go to Mars. That's not going to happen. It has to happen over a period of time. You have to, kind of identify the automatable cases and do it. And what we have also seen is that oftentimes these cases have kind of, expanded a lot of redundant cases, lot of non-reusable cases, lot of features are not even there, but still is there as part of the test suite. So somebody has to look into it and, kind of remove the flap out of there, or rather, that's definitely one of the things that we are seeing. And this is where the maintenance comes into picture, right? But not having the right maintenance. And oftentimes I've seen people, the teams put in effort to have the right automation strategy, right framework, and all those things, but miss out on the maintenance part of it, because bulk of your it's like your own, you have to maintain your health, you have to,
Right.
So it's just like that, right? So you have to make it conditional. So bottom line, if the team is aware where we want to head, what is the outcome of this whole thing that we are working on, and what is in for me for each of the team member, I think a lot of things just fall into place, and they're able to focus on that. And because of the plan, because of the strategy, that there's a consensus-led strategy, consensus-led adoption of the practices and whatnot to be done, the burnout is going to be much lesser, and the team is actually matured in a lot more way than disparate teams out there, Lucio.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because burnout, happiness, the culture of adaptability to new tools, and all these stuff has to do really with the maturity of the team. And so I think we all can agree that it's not about what you're telling me. Is not about automating more. Let's just not go ahead and jump and say we're going to automate this thing. Is one off. But in reality, it's about automating smart and in a targeted phase strategy, right? Like, step by step, identify the things that you want, have a plan. Don't jump into that fight without a plan of attack, because otherwise, the not only the leader, if you are the leader listening to this, trying to approach that strategy, will end up frustrated, but also the team members. So that brings us to the second topic right here, which I want to evaluate today, is one of the statistics that we got also in the report is that 55% of manual testers say that they lack the time to upskill, meaning they don't have time to learn new things. And that is a big gap that if we want QA professionals to really grow in the field. So let's go ahead and dig into that a little bit. What in your opinion, and what you have seen in the industry, what are the best teams doing right? What are the patterns that have you seen that separate the high performing teams from the rest? Is there anything that you can share about that?
Sure, Lucio, it's a very good thing, especially when there is so much about AI Gen AI coming in. And this actually is a very good differentiator between a high performing team and a team which is completely demotivated. And it need not be just a manual testing. It could be even an automation team who's getting demotivated of late, kind of a stuff. One thing is the leader or the project team or whoever is they need to have a clear vision as well as the direction. What is the technology adoption that the company is going to have? Maybe 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. That will help develop and enrich the skills. I would disagree, saying that the manual testers do not have time, because at the end of the day, I feel personally, any person who is passionate about learning, continuous learning, because we are in an intellectual industry. right? Obviously, you need to learn, and you have to constantly unlearn and continuously learning. It is the way that this industry is working on, right? So you need to continuously learn. And if you're passionate about learning, you will make time for it. So if we saying that I don't have time, I mean, you just probably have to pause, or you talk to your leaders, or you talk to your managers to say, I just need to enable yourself. Obviously, there is going to be things, because every organization wants to release faster. They want to mitigate the risks that is associated in the releases. They want to go beat their competition. They want to raise their features, or all those kind of stuff. Automation is one of the faster ways of doing, but will automation alone help? No. So I think the team per se, it's, as much as the leader is looking at the vision, the team also individually needs to contribute to upskill, enrich the skill sets required. And it is like, you also need to be self-motivated. Then, where there's a will, there is a way, right? So that's the way it is. And with AI, Gen AI coming, a lot of mundane tasks is definitely going to get offset. And we are going to really see the a whole lot of leverage of AI and Gen AI kind of stuff. But human in the loop is much more important into that, because we have seen, I mean, in the last couple of weeks, we have been doing a lot of POCs, a lot of test cases may not be relevant, or it's kind of biased, hallucinations and all those things. That is where human in the loop is going to come, which is much more, I would say, prominent for a hybrid testers, which is a combination of leveraging the right, the automation, the tools, the Gen AI, as well as the processes. So it's kind of, as well as the domain skills, right? So it's going to be a multitask. So the hybrid tester is really going to be one of the key differentiator for us as they move into the maturity. And I feel we should not say manual testing is not, but I feel looking it from a different angle, how this whole thing, when the human comes into loop, is going to break, or how the end user is going to use it, is something that only humans can think. AI cannot think, visualize about.
That is something that we're going to dive deep into I believe in a session or two. We're going to talk about the impact of AI in QA, and one of the statistics is precisely that, what you're saying, like how important is to have humans in the feedback loop, because I personally, as an AI user, I don't think it will ever come to the point where a human is not involved in the process. There always has to be a validation of the results. And you said something very important about the team feeling motivated and empowered to continue learning. But Sergio, I want to put you on the spot here. How do you create a culture where testers feel challenged and they feel motivated and they feel like they should be empowered to grow and bring more to, not necessarily more to the table, because they are already responsible for the success of the product. So how do we create a culture where the QA professionals feel like they have a seat at the table?
That's an extremely good question, Lucio. So I think that's challenging, right? So it depends also like on the leadership that we have. And I've seen many different types of leaderships. Sometimes it's not easy to like achieve a culture. Of course, what we can start by thinking is that we cannot really time slot or the learning to like 1 hour for like every Friday from 10 to 11, you get the time to learn. I don't think it works that way. So we need to foster a culture to enable that as part of the whole software development process, where people have the implicit time to learn. Because if I'm going to develop software, I need time to also like experiment new tools, new frameworks, and new algorithms. I'm not just I should not just allocate time to write the code, to write the letters of the function and the methods that I want to call. So that should be accounted for during the time of the let's say the sprint. And we should try to, I think, first of all, we should try to get some time for people so they can invest that time on learning. And one way of getting time for the people to upskill their skills is to start investing on automation, on test automation, right?
Great.
Because in the end, of course, you need to have test automation, but you also need to have exploratory testing, because test automation gives us like an idea how things are, given like the checks that we make, but we always need to have people looking at the software that we build, because in the end, we are building software for humans, right? And we should not forget that. And another aspect that I think is important is that testers are not just people that execute tests. I think we should try to give the opportunity for testers to also build skills around communication, about leadership, because they are more like I think they are more and more like quality enablers within the team. So I'm not sure the name for that role. Some time ago, someone was calling these persons like giving them like a specific name for that role, but it's giving like this awareness about risk, quality, that we should have this mindset of keeping improving. So we need to let these people grow, promote them, giving them opportunities to learn about things totally outside of, let's say, the software development thing, because I've learned throughout time, that we deal with software, but in the end, it's a human-related problem. So we start many bugs that that ended up in our solutions. They are like misconceptions or misunderstandings that we have. And many times people don't collaborate enough. So we need to foster a collaboration environment. And that requires that people are, have the means to actually talk with one another and be open to collaborate and give inputs whenever they are required. So just giving a quick example, and I'll end my feedback. So for example, you're doing like pull requests, like, let me shift now to the development side. You're doing pull requests, and someone is doing, pull requests. Okay, they are good. Maybe they are not like the best practice, but they are good to some point, right? And that is like a development thing. And I've seen with my eyes where we get also testers looking at the pull requests as a way to learn also about the risks that are getting embedded into the software. So we should think about testers as these people that have this awareness about risks in a broad perspective, then that can bring value, not at just a given moment in time, but continuously, as I think with the concept that I call omni-testing or holistic testing, as Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory mentioned, looking at quality in a broad perspective, something that not happens in one single moment in time, not in a single process, but in the whole process and continuously.
Thank you for sharing that. Hima, I want to pick your brain a little bit. What advice would you give to teams that feel like they're testing everything, but they're not testing anything at all because they feel like they're completely overwhelmed by automation? Anything that you want to share with the audience?
Okay. Team alignment, so they know where they are heading. So that way, it's a consensus amongst all the team members. That's one thing. Right automation and maintenance strategy. Leveraging the right tools and the frameworks. Obviously, leverage GenAI, skill enrichment and learning, I think is the mantra for success for any team. So this is what I would say for a success of for any automation project.
Thank you so much. And Sergio, as we close this session, in a few words, if there is, to all the leaders watching today, what is the one takeaway that you would like them to take home and act on this quarter or next quarters in their companies?
I think testers have been critical, and they will still be critical more than ever, actually, with all the code that is being pushed with some efficiency through the Gen AI kind of capabilities. Also, there comes also like a risk with it, right?
Yeah.
So there are studies we know, like from Microsoft and others, that also there is like some possible risks coming with that, and we need to actually have testers looking more and more to that. So I think we won't move. We want to, the tester role won't disappear. We just have to embrace the technologies, learn what they mean, what they allow us to achieve, and go and see what are the risks related with that, right? And that's where the testers can bring their most added value. I also noticed that in the report that Luke Skywalker was the favorite Star Wars character. But
For those, hey, listen, as I take credit for writing the report with our CMO Derek Weeks, and I'm telling you, we had a very strong argument about that statistic at the end. So, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Chapter 8 of the State of Software Quality Report has very cool insights about what is a hot dog, what kind of pizza you guys like, and on top of that, what is the best or the best Star Wars character. I think Jar Jar Binks got left out of the picture irrationally. I don't know why that happened. But all right, folks, thank you so much. Sergio, thank you so much. Hima, it was a pleasure having you here today. Thank you for the insights. Let's go ahead and get started with session number 2. So, according to the State of Software Quality Report, 70% of QA professionals, that is you, said that AI is critical to the state to the future of quality. But when you look deeper, 46% of them cite skill gaps, and 20% of you are worrying about losing your job to AI. So many of those are also very unsure where to start. In this session, we're going to have a conversation about what AI can realistically do for QA today. We're going to talk about why AI is more of a career accelerator than a job killer. Emphasis on that entire line is going to help you be much better at what you're doing. And last but not least, we're going to talk about how to adopt AI without overwhelming you and your team. So I am joined today by two great people here. I have Michael Giacometti from Testing Experts and also Lyndon De Souza from Vistra. Michael, Lyndon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you guys today?
Hi, Lucio. Glad to be here.
Very excited.
Hello,
How do
everyone.
Michael, how are you?
Not bad, Lucio. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you both for being here. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. For those of you who are joining just now, remember this is being recorded and it will be available on demand. Q&A questions, put them on the Q&A button. So let's go ahead and get started. This is one of the things that really got me excited when we were writing the report. We put in there as many the questions as we wanted to dive in technically and into other topics. One of the questions that I was really happy about was asking point blank, are you using AI in some shape or form or not? 76% of 1,500 people told us that they are already using AI. But because of that, I mean, that what that tells me is that AI moved away from being a buzzword to something that people are seeing value when they are working with. They know that it's helping them. They know that it's doing something for them. So let's go ahead and start with what is real today. This is what the report is telling us. But I want to ask the two of you the main question. What is AI really doing for QA today? Is it beyond? Is my perception correct? Is it beyond buzzwords, or what is it? What are you observing in the industry that AI is being so impactful?
So, great question, Lucio. I mean, data shows AI is no longer some sci-fi thing. It's right there, right now. And we have started to see how AI can be a practical enabler. It's not just a hype anymore. For example, we've piloted AI-based tools that can generate test cases directly from user stories, which means less time spent writing test cases and more time reviewing meaningful coverage. Secondly, it also helps us with smart regression selection. Instead of running every test suite after code change, AI can suggest what is the most impacted test, saving us hours, sometimes days in test execution. My advice would be don't go all out at once. Pick a small project, do a pilot, measure the impact, then scale. That's what we did, and the results were, very promising.
Sure. From my perspective, honestly, not only is AI no longer a buzzword, but this is the year where AI will go from pilot process to actually being put into production. And one of the things that we've seen from a quality assurance standpoint is that we're able to leverage the AI tools to fully realize what quality engineering and quality assurance should be. And so for years, everyone has been talking about shift left and shift right is about getting closer into production or to development and then getting into production or closer to the user experience. What we're actually able to do now is by leveraging AI, we're able to take care of all the things that were just sucking bandwidth, like, redundant manual test cases are now able to be created by AI. Automation of test cases, preparation and execution is being able to be done by AI. And what that is doing is that's giving quality engineers the perspective of being customer first and creating that linkage between what's happening in the customer's personal experience and how the product is being designed. And so what that's doing is AI is actually the enabler for QE to fully realize, its full potential of what we've been talking about for decades.
Right. You were mentioning a couple of things, and I believe it almost sounded like a list of use cases that you believe AI is going to, and I agree with you. Now, my question to both of you: out of those, have you seen something in real life? Is there any one of those use cases that you are actually working on with AI that you're seeing good results from, or and on the same note, what are the ones or the use cases that you believe AI will be the most helpful on?
I think I can say for our team, I think we have done a pilot wherein certain critical use cases were used as pilot to generate test cases to see how accurate they were. And not saying they were 100% accurate, but since AI is learning, it took some time and nearly 99% it is accurate, I would say. And, there's a saying, Lucio, the best tools in the world are useless in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use them. That applies perfectly to AI and QA. It's not about the tool. It's about how well we as testers adapt and use it to our advantage. So, AI is here. It's here. I mean, it's here to stay. And you rather be friends with it than enemies, right? And
Absolutely.
like I said, building test plans to generating test cases. We have used it, and we have achieved amazing results. And wherein the QA testers were taking around 2 to 3 days for test case generation, we see that being completed in a couple of hours. So the man days saving is amazing out here.
And
What?
I'm
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say from our perspective, we've actually been having a couple of use cases put into production today. One of the things that we've done is we've actually started leveraging multi-agentic AI. And so everything I was talking about going from the user experience all the way to, looking at Jira and, other testing tools or test management tools for requirements and such, we're actually chaining those with tools such as TrueTest to be able to create those test cases and execute it. So we've got one agentic team that, for example, will scan reviews from user store, from app stores or Android store or Facebook. It'll create use cases out of those and then automate them with Katalon. And so we're able to do all this right now specifically by leveraging multi-agentic architectures through agent orchestration platforms with what Katalon has. So we've been able to convert operations that were taking 120 hours down to about 5 minutes with the whole thing. So we've got a lot of use cases around it. And the other thing we have too is we're doing things like automated script conversion to Katalon. So this is one of the things where no matter what you created in, we can flip it to Katalon and save time on script migration. So ton of use cases. What you really need to do is just create a culture of learning, and actually giving people the space to do it.
So, so everything that you just explained sounds amazing. And I personally am not a tester. I do know of the testing industry because I work on it. But for those who may be thinking, hey, what you just explained is it may be too complex. The setup is just not worth it. Have you seen? One question is, have you seen small teams making AI work for them without spending too much time on setup? And for those who are skeptical of investing in AI, do you think the size of the team matters on the ROI that they will get out of it?
So, when we initially started using Katalon, I'll just take an example of when we started using Katalon. We have scaled manual testers to start using automation. And we started with keyword-driven testing, right? And then they scaled up and started learning coding. And AI actually tutored them along the way, right? Rather than going on Google, searching the materials, AI was there, hand holding them and, teaching them, what is the code logic, what does it mean, and that built the interest of the testers, right? And they actually came back telling me, this is a great tool, right? It's mentoring us, it tells us where we are going wrong. And in a couple of months, we could, the coverage that we achieved with automation using AI was amazing and, very accurate. So, from my perspective, using AI along with Katalon proved to be a boon for us, and we have achieved great results. And it does not matter for the size of the team. So we started with 3 testers using Katalon with AI and, automating the test cases, slowly scaling up. We did not use the big bang approach. So I think irrespective of the size of the teams, I think each and every one should be able to use that as a leverage.
Mike, what do you think?
Completely agree. So we actually have a mandate that people get certified at least on one AI platform. This includes people who are not technical at all the way down to our AI researchers. And ultimately, what we're learning is that the learning curve to become productive is about 2 days, 3 days if you go at it. And then what is really making the difference is how tools are, accessible and approachable.
Mhm.
So the learning curve on the tools is negligible. People can be up and running immediately. I do agree with what Lyndon was saying. You do start small and iterate. But the other thing I've noticed this has made people to do is become more introspective about their processes. So they'll start using AI, but now it's a wake-up call to say, like, are we really creating test cases correctly? Are we sequencing them correctly? They start asking other questions. And the bigger point is not how fast I can apply AI. It's easy to learn, easy to pick up, and approachable. It's now I have speed and time to address everything else. And so we've been seeing that a lot, and that's become from technical audiences, non-technical audiences, and they're all focusing on, just AI as the driver for this.
Right. And I think that it's important to make a remark on that, because one of the things that we happen to say all the time is, like, AI is going to allow you to be innovative and more productive. And a lot of people may be wondering, okay, what does that mean? All my life I've been doing nothing but testing. What is the entire skill set or all the capabilities that AI is going to allow me to do that I still don't know? And I think that's a great point. Like, it will allow you to go see a strategy, see other things that you may have been missing along the road. So before we jump into the next section, there is a very interesting question here in the Q&A. Somebody's asking, as a manual tester, how do we switch to AI? Where do I start? And I think this goes along with, like, how do you train teams into these new technologies without getting them overwhelmed or feeling like they're about to face this huge mountain? What advice would you give to the audience in that sense?
So ultimately, what I would say is, first off, in order to implement AI from a person standpoint, forget about the technology for a second, you really have to have 3 things. The first is a point of view. How do I see the world? How do I understand testing? The second is domain expertise, which you've been building up for years through your career. And the third is a sense of curiosity to keep trying, and just like testers do, keep trying and fail fast, and understand that You make mistakes, but the effort will not fail. So it's that sense of curiosity and drive and having confidence that you know what you're doing. The key to it, and what we've noticed when we were implementing Chat GPT, for example, for testing and all the GPT engines, is that it's very easy to become over dependent and basically submit a prompt to the engine, get a test case back, and then spend all your time reviewing it.
Right.
What also helps in the adoption is realizing that you are a human manager of a digital asset. And what that you are basically mentoring AI to do what you do. And then that's where the learning curve really shortens, because you don't have to learn anything else. You just need to, in, imbue your domain expertise into how you're using the AI platform.
That is an excellent point right there. Lyndon, what do you have?
I think Lucio, initially baby steps. If anyone wants to start using AI within their teams, start off with maybe test case generation. AI tools can analyze user stories, requirements, or past effect trends, and can help generate test cases, right? I would start with that and then slowly scale up. If manual testing is something that you're looking at initially, what your strategy is initially? Are you looking at just for manual testing? Are you looking for automation? If you're looking at manual testing, I would say start off with generation of test cases using AI and see how much it saves you. You need to measure the impact. You need to see that if it's taking X number of days for me to do it without AI, how many days is it taking? How many days is it saving? How do you capitalize on that? Now, post the manual testing, you go back to regression testing. And in regression testing, how do you actually use AI and the automation tools that are available to you to actually scale up your automation needs, right? I do believe, in my current project, I have all of the manual testing testers doing automation with variable capacity. So slowly start with 10% capacity for your automation testers, be a manual testers along with automation, and slowly by steadily get them comfortable, start pairing them with the AI tools, start building knowledge, start gaining knowledge from that, because it's all about initiative. If you don't take that initiative, AI is not going to come and do the spoon feeding for you. You need to go there, ask the right questions, get the knowledge, and scale. Be it manual testing or automation, initiative here is a big factor here. And like I said, AI is here to stay. You need to be friends with it rather than treating it as an enemy.
Managing a digital asset, that's what Mike mentioned, and now also asking the right questions, and like you said, is here to stay. Now let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, because interestingly, 20% of people in the report told us that they were very concerned that AI could replace their job. Only 11% said that they are not concerned. The cool thing about the results on this question is that the 20% that told us that they were concerned about AI taking their jobs away are AI users, and non-AI users, the bliss of, I guess, not using it is, hey, I don't know this thing. I don't think it's going to take my job away. So, how do we, the main question is this fear valid, or is AI going to, like you said, Lyndon, is going to stay here to help testers grow in their careers? What do you think this fear comes from?
Great point, Lucio. And yeah, I have heard this concern a lot. Will AI take our jobs? Here's my take. AI is powerful, but it's not empathetic. It can spot patterns, analyze data, maybe even generate scripts, but it doesn't understand why a user might get frustrated or how a business user feels when a workflow breaks. So while AI enhances what we do, it still needs domain knowledge, human judgment, and soft skills to guide it. Personally, I see AI as a career accelerator. The testers on my team who have embraced AI tools, they are the ones moving into leadership roles, becoming automation architects, and influencing product quality strategies. So my advice to fellow testers, don't fear AI, learn it, use it, partner it. The future belongs to those who adapt.
My take on it, one, it starts from the top. AI adoption goes really, really well when the company culture that you work for actually talks about innovation and stretching and learning. They make that a goal. The second thing I brought up, because I was just addressing this the other day to a group of testers, was that, when the car was invented, people working on horses and carriages didn't all of a sudden lose their jobs and nothing else. They evolved. And so the key to that is it's up to not just what your company's doing in the product direction they send and the easy use of the products that are put out there. It's the personal training that you're willing to do. Starting out with the courses about even how to do a prompt engineering or build a chatbot. They're all free. They're all available. But where do you want to take it? Because the evolution of this with QA is not simply, using AI tools to do the automated and the manual testing, but you as a quality professional have been for years helping organizations cross the chasm between what was built and how it's used. And you still get to be that leader. You still get to be more empathetic and understand the user and the engineering experience. And you get to set the example for the rest of the organization, because QA has always been that canary in the coal mine for everything. And so it's not just a matter of what is available. It's the drive that you have and sitting down with yourself and determine the direction you want to move in. But it's not going to replace your job. What it's going to do is going to push you to reach out and keep learning and keep upskilling.
To your reference about when the car was invented, I think it was Henry Ford who said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And so they, it's the same thing with AI. And my point with this is, it doesn't matter which role you are or we are. AI is such a thing that is making a big change. And humans, naturally, I do believe that humans are reluctant to change. Like nobody does well with change, whether it's dramatic or like unplanned or planned. And this is one of those things that is changing the way that we do things, right? And on top of that, it's coming with such big capabilities that I can imagine, that's where the fear is coming from. Is unpacking so many things on us that we may have been missing, that makes you go like, oh, hang on a minute, I've been doing my job wrong all this time, So, but I think the key is that, human judgment will always outperform AI. And to Hima's point in the previous session, humans always are going to be part of the feedback loop. So, what are you guys doing anything with your teams to help them get upskilled in AI? Is there any classes, courses, training that is going on?
So I think initially, Lucio, we had conducted sessions with the team. In terms of how AI can help us in our day-to-day lives. So, for example, there are some of the tools that are available in the market. For example, the ChatGPT, you have Anthropic, to name a few, and you have certain AI models for presentations, for Excel formulas. I have a list. If anyone wants that, they can connect with me later on, so I can guide them. But here we conducted initial sessions to get people comfortable with the idea that AI, they could be friends with AI. Initially, what you said is correct, right? If people are resistant to change, they feel that, oh, I don't need AI. I can do my work as is. Why does anything have to change? Why do we need to fix anything which isn't broken? But once they got in the groove with AI, that's when they started coming back and telling, oh, this could save us a couple of hours, and that a number of hours converted into man days, and eventually that saved us money. Everything that we are talking about, it translates eventually into money. And the management at the top loves hearing that we are saving money. So that's the catchword. So to get the team, just to summarize, to get the teams involved with AI, we started sessions, and we asked them, try it out, and let us know what your feedback is. Similar to a POC, let us know your feedback, and that's what helped us.
Right.
So,
Michael, anything you're doing for training?
Yeah, so basically we do a few things. Every week, since we're a services company where we're partnering with Katalon as well, every week we run a session where sales teams tell stories of implementing AI, the types of objections they're getting, and how they're overcoming them. So a lot of peer-to-peer training. We also do bi-weekly engineering innovation days where for 30 minutes, somebody who built something with AI showcases it to the entire organization. What we've also done is come up with basically AI 101, 201, and 301 courses. These are essentially courses that we can find on Udemy or Coursera, for example, that in 101 set the foundation of what AI is and how it's used. 201, we start breaking down to different specialties of what they do, testing, developing, selling, managing. And then in 301, it's really if you want to get into the research side of AI about how LLMs are created, open weight systems. That's what we do. So it's a voyage, and we actually hook that up to goals and objectives. And so in order to get a promotion, in order to, get a more senior role, we've got to construct how you're being certified. And so, our partners, for example, like Katalon would have courses fitting in that 201 layer. So they have a background, but then they become deeply specialized.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you for sharing. So let's bring these now to implementation. So we talk about partnering with AI, and we talk about all these wonderful things that we're seeing. But one of the things that the report also told us is that 55% of AI users, again, we divided this into AI and non-AI users, say that, and 57 of non-AI users, they cite time as a major or lack of time as a major blocker. And so the main question for both of you is like, now that we know the advantages, now that we know the ROI, now that we know that it will help you and it will definitely not take your job away, what are the keys to adopting AI in QA without overwhelming the team? Because Mike, you tell me, hey, there is training, there is a lot of stuff to do, and Lyndon also, you're telling me, there are multiple things to get done. What is the advice that you would give teams and leaders of teams if they want to start adopting these strategies? So they don't feel like they're about to climb Mount Everest in a week without training.
So I would say, Lucio, like I said previously, like take baby steps, build a strategy around your teams, take your teams into confidence. I think, you need to give your teams the confidence that, anything that we introduce is not for taking away your jobs. Today, in the age of AI and what we hear today in the newspapers, it's sometimes disconcerting, saying that, AI will eat your jobs and you'll be jobless. And we need to build that confidence in the teams that, this is for your betterment, for your career growth. And we are here to help you with your career growth, right? AI is here not to take away your jobs. You need to, build that kind of collaboration with AI and upskill yourselves. Like Michael said, build, grow with certifications. Don't just stay a manual tester anymore. No one, it's not the best word out there, just being a manual tester. Right now, with all the tools available, you should be able to upskill yourself. Again, take baby steps. Start introducing AI to your teams. See how they react to it, and build that confidence slowly by steadily. I think if you are not using automation, see how you can transition your teams from manual to automation. Build strategies, and small steps translate into something really big, and you will see the difference. I promise you. And this is what we had done with our teams, and the results are amazing.
Excellent. And as we wrap up, Mike, I want to start with you. For any leaders and any teams listening to us today, what is the one word of advice that you would give them if they're thinking about AI adoption this year or in the upcoming quarters?
Sure. Make sure any AI you pick is really satisfying 3 rules. 1, it continuously learns, so you're not having to do the same thing over again, which would hit the time sync that you're seeing on the slide. The second is that anything that creating is not just good enough, you got to execute. So the AI you choose has to be able to execute. And the third is that it has to collaborate. It's a team, and the AI agents should be working together. And so if you have all 3 of those, then you will not hit the time challenges. And so as a leader, look for any AI package you implement, how you roll it out satisfies those 3 conditions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we are on time, and I have another session that I want to bring the audience to. You will see a poll in the screen right now for our attendees. Please go ahead and answer a couple of questions. That will help us a lot with future sessions. And also, we would like to hear from you. This is all about data. We want more data, right? So, Lyndon and Mike, thank you so much for all the insights. I hope you have a wonderful day. And to the rest of the audience, stay tuned because we're going to start session number 3 in just a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll be
you,
right-
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
This one is called AI as a transformative force for scaling QA in the enterprise. So we are talking about scaling QA is just not about doing more testing and having more scripts. According to our State of Software Quality Report, 55% of teams cite that they don't have time to complete their testing as the biggest challenge. And also 41% of them are citing or are struggling with skill gaps in the skill set. At the same time, 61% of you are telling us that you are planning on adopting AI in the near future, actually, because that question was for the next 12 months. So today we're going to talk about what is holding team backs, what is working at scale, what QA leaders need to prioritize when bringing AI to the enterprise. And I am very happy to introduce today my 2 co-hosts. I have with me Priyanka Halder from Health Edge. Hello, Priyanka.
Hi.
And also I have Jason Lee from Deloitte Canada. Jason, how are you?
Hey, good to see you, Lucio. Good to hello, everyone.
Excellent. Very happy to have you here. So let me go ahead and see if I can get control of this screen. We are talking today about the scaling trap. So let's go ahead and get started right away. Like the challenge that we see with the data is that despite big investments that we're seeing in automation, many teams still hit a wall when trying to implement it. And according to what we're seeing in the data is that at least 43% of QA professionals struggle with automation maintenance. They also 41% are reporting difficulty finding skilled talent to the automation. So the main question that I want to start our discussion today, Priyanka and Jason, is what or why are so many QA teams hitting this wall when trying to scale their automation efforts? Is what experiences can you tell me of things that you're seeing with the teams that you're working with that is preventing the scaling QA procedures in this day and age?
I think I can get started first. Hi, everyone. This is Priyanka Halder. I am the Vice President of Quality at Health Edge, and I have 18 plus years of experience in the quality engineering space, known for automation transformations and large-scale team implementations. So coming back to Lucio's question, I think the first thing I see in any company who are struggling with quality at scale is because they do not have a thought out strategy or process or tooling or governance to scale QA. They take QA as an afterthought and just like another step to go out in the production. And a lot of time when a company is built, because I have worked in early stage startup to a very large scale enterprise now, we are not thinking about quality early enough, right? Until it's becoming a very big problem. Because when you are small and your customer base is small, maybe the bugs doesn't help you, like doesn't create much noise. But when you are at an enterprise scale and when sometimes companies actually get a hyper growth, right? That time they start figuring out that it's a big problem. And if we had to pinpoint why they see that, because again, they might just think, and most of the companies think, okay, one QA is enough for my 20 people development team, because we will just throw over the fence tickets. They will be the quality gate and they will say, yeah, fine. They don't even have any thought out strategy on automation. They think that, okay, writing any script is fine. So no, not any emphasis on scalability or anything, like how the future looks like that thought process doesn't exist much, right? And when they try to bring in a leader, it's already very late, right? So like they have to start from scratch at a very later stage. So my suggestion will be like, think about it early on so that you are thinking about 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the roadmap where you want to be, want the quality to be for your companies, right? And how do you see it? Are you gonna do shift left and your developer gonna be full stack engineers? Then ingrain the culture from that on, because that has an effect on your SDLC lifecycle. That has an effect of the tools you are choosing for automation. So yeah, that will be my answer in a nutshell.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Jason, what do you think? Again, to reiterate the question, there are so many teams out there hitting a wall when it comes to implementing or scaling automation efforts. And what is your take on why this is happening?
Yeah, I think it's a number of factors, and Priyanka touched on a few of those. I guess maybe just to give a bit more context. So, I came from the service industry, right? So, what I typically work with a client is, delivering quality, right, on big transformation, big delivery program. And I use automation as a way to make sure the delivery is efficient and also sustainable, right, going forward. But, also another angle is to help the client in terms of various aspects of QE transformation. And automation, believe it or not, right, is still a very hot recurring topic. Now, I think the 51%, right, in terms of the skill set, as much as, for the past few years, right, we've seen a lot of advance in tooling and technology, right? Like Katalon, we folks introduce a local, type of test automation, be more replacing, right? Reduce the dependency, right, on highly technical skill set that help in that department. But, sort of the lack of skills is also, I'm not surprised to see the 51%. But the other piece about, you use the word holding back, I see also a lot of companies, they struggle to make a case on automation. Now, we all know that automation is an investment, right? You invest for efficiency and sustainability in the future. What I typically have seen a lot of the sort of measurement of automation is around sort of the coverage, right? Percentage, 90%, 95%, right? Or whatever the number in between. But at times, the failure of making the business cases, measuring the ROI in a more business and delivery context, right? What is the reduction of effort? What is the reduction of, the timeline of delivery, aka, improve the time to value? And also, what is the risk conversation that we can build in, right? Where we increase the coverage through repeating the automated testing, right? But, that means that we can free up capacity to do some specific ad hoc, right, type of testing specific to the release. So we see that, many companies, a bit of, have a challenge making the case of automation, right? Maybe also focus on matrix that could be more business and technology context focused.
And that is something that we will discuss later. Also, the case for investing in QA. And to Priyanka's point, I was actually talking to a coworker yesterday, and a friend of mine, and he says, "Listen, many people may not." In the QA industry may not really want to, or they probably feel like they don't have a seat at the table. And to Priyanka's point is, and when I talk about a seat on the table, I'm talking about the strategic board, right? Like making decisions on how is it that the company is going to do much better. And actually, the report tells us that those who see QA as a strategic driver, they see better results on customer success. They see better results in their products. They see there are so many gains to get from these investments, and it blows my mind to understand or to see that QA is still seen as a checkbox. Like, hey, let's invest little because we just need to get all the bugs out and get that product out there. When in reality, there is more to that. So let me follow up with a. Yes, go ahead, Priyanka.
That's based on one more thing. So like the 51% limited skill, right? Like as a leader in this industry, I can tell you, Lucio, that this is a perception. Like lot of time we are talking about very bare minimum of any framework or tool, right? Like everybody just talk about the basic workflows. I seldom find any webinar or anything which actually shows you a enterprise level implementation. I think that is where we are lacking, right? Like there has been beautiful implementations with a lot of this AI tool. I myself has done with my team in couple of companies, right? But I don't think we talk enough, or we know enough, or we tell our industry enough that this is how it is possible. It's very ingrained in some companies, or very proprietary information, right? So what our QA are learning today are only the basics. So when they start implementing on that basic, so they fail, and this limitation of skill comes in and experience comes in, because there are very few in the industry who can tell you like what a wow implementation looks like, how you can be successful. So something to think about.
And that answers a question I was going to follow up with, which is, what is the skill gap and what is missing? What is it that teams need to start catching up to? And I want to also ask you both: do you think there is fear of implementation or scaling automation because of the maintenance costs that may be associated with it? And if that is the case, when do you think the maintenance costs creep in the most when implementing automation in the enterprise?
I think there's some apprehension, right, on building another sort of technology debt, right, as part of the automation, right. I think one way, as I mentioned earlier, I think to sort of set the expectation of automation is going to be an investment, right? So it's not about what is the payback period needs to look like, right? That when things becoming stable. I do see the advance, right, in terms of the auto healing capability, right, in terms of able to fix a script. So that mitigate the rhythm. But I think something still need to be true is that we cannot automate, right, some of the buggy test cases, right? And if the test cases itself, right, is not specific, right, with the right level of details, that is something that will hinder the ROI going forward. So I think going back is the dependency, right, the upfront process driven, right, and then the technology approach, right, to be able to scale the test case faster and then able to auto heal. That would be mitigate the risk of body creating another big elephant in the room and create yet another technology.
I would answer this in a different way. Go ahead, Lucy.
Yeah, no, Priyanka, please.
Yeah, so I'll answer it in a different angle. I would say that there are different stages of company. You are early stage, you are mid, you are full enterprise, right? And any scaling comes with your stage, right? So as Jason said, I absolutely agree that there is an investment you need to do, let's say $100,000. Now it's up to the leader. They want to create a separate team who works on the open source, but you are allocating that money for that individual human being who can bring in that good automation at scale. Or you want to go for some tooling like Katalon and give it to everyone's hand. And there are multiple that I have used, not only Katalon, Apple tools, others as well. And you can de-risk it a bit as well. So you are not completely human dependent, a separate service team dependent, that okay, only that team can maintain and scale the automations, right? You can go both way, and either of them work. I have seen it work. So there is nothing like, okay, this tools doesn't work versus open source work, or open source doesn't work versus. It absolutely depends where your hunger is and how you want to mitigate the scaling risk at that time. Because trust me or not, like when I started, obviously we started with Selenium, and my team had a very good implementation on Selenium and GoodRx, right? It used to run in 6 minutes, 600 plus test cases in like 7 cross-functional devices, like 4 or 5 browsers and 2 real devices, right? Unheard of in the industry. But then I came to a point where like estates were a very high skill, very hard to hire. And if they leave, like I have an immediate vacuum to maintain that that framework, right? And how do I do that? So then I started looking at this kind of tooling like TestIM and others, and I started finding who are doing this at scale. Like, is it working? Because there's a lot of apprehension that this tools doesn't work. It's not as like extendable as an open source, right? And I want to debug that. I would tell you with my experience, what I have seen is if you utilize this kind of tools, for example, what works against you is that now you have a company who works on this framework. You don't have to deal with the headache of it, right? And that works very beautifully when I work with big enterprises, because I have to give automation to 300 plus developers, right? To do that with a service team becomes impossible for me, right? So I always look for a tool where like the framework is taken care of, and again, some things will work, some things will not work. That is true for your open source as well. And then work with that company to make it better. And like I have really good relationship with all the big companies that I work with, even the testing tools, because they love me. I always give feedback. Okay, this is not working, that is not working, auto healing is not capturing this, I'm not able to take screenshots from you. And now you have a paid team from that company who is committed to make that framework work for you, and you don't have to hire those people. So I think again, like, depends on the stage of the company, depend the tooling you are and your risk appetite, how you will be de-risking the scaling, right?
That is great. Thank you for sharing. So I want to switch gears a little bit here. Now let's go ahead and talk about what is the QA playbook for enterprises. So one of the questions that we were asking is if they are seeing, what are the results that they're seeing? And when I say they, I'm talking about mature teams and bigger enterprises. What are the results that they see when they are observing QA as a strategic driver rather than just a unit that is catching bugs? So 53% of teams told us that they see faster time to market. 83% of teams told us that they saw fewer, or that they're seeing fewer production defects. And 73% of teams told us that they see greater efficiency among the teams, that greater efficiency in their operations or running leaner operations. So my main question for both of you, it looks like, so Priyanka, to your point, without a strategy, scale is going to become a chaos. It's going to become a thing that is not going to happen. So my question to you is like, now we're talking about we talked about the negatives, like, hey, this is not going to work if you don't do fill in the blank. Let's go ahead and fill in the blank. What can you tell the audience the playbook looks like if you want to implement a scalability that is successful in terms of QA?
Jason, you want to go first?
Maybe I'll go with this one. I think one thing we need to keep in mind is QE is an integrated part of the life cycle. You cannot improve QE, right, without improving other aspects of the life cycle. If I put it in a bit more positive framing, is QE and automation is a collective win-win, right? The tools and mechanism, the efficiency that we're driving, and the faster time to market and will help you, right, is a collective win, with the technology delivery. And I see that at times, if the QE team, even though the improvements originated from QE, if QE team position in this way, right, and negotiate on a bit of a constraint that we need to do, is quite easy to drive the adoption and able to push the agenda. So what that translates into, in terms of the enterprise QA playbook, as we know, like QA has dependency on many areas, right? On the PO, on the development team, on the environment, and on the data, right? And those are sort of, dependency on constraint that we need to work with. And at times that I saw some of the QA team may be a little bit more broad when it communicates the dependency. We need all the environment. We need all to be integrated together. I think, an approach, as I mentioned earlier, right? Build a collective win-win culture, do it in an iterative way, practical and iterative on the dependency. That's easier to bring everybody into the tent and have a collective win, right? Beyond just the QE. So I think that's one way that I see successful on the way around. Some of those are not so successful in terms of like scaling an enterprise QA playbook right across the board.
Excellent. Priyanka, what is your opinion?
I have a scaling playbook, right? When I start thinking about scaling, the first thing I do is maturity assessment of every part of the SDLC, right? Like, what's our development practices are? Who are the people who will be writing this test? what is the appetite from the development side of the house, writing unit tests, different layers of test, right? Will they have enough time to write functional test as well? Do they have the expertise there or not? So like I do have a playbook, and I'll share later in the chat that I learned from Ticketmaster. They actually have an open source maturity model that you can use. I do use it. I have my own version of that. But that works beautifully to figure out the data, how you will be modeling the automation, right? And what are the tools you will be choosing. The next thing I do is I figure out hotspot about the bugs, right? So if you have a goal of doing 83% reduction, you have to figure out what are the modules, what are the applications that are producing those bugs, and then you will be able to reduce it. And again, then go back, what is the best tool out in the market, along with the talent you have in your team, to combine them both to make sure that you will be succeeding in scaling that. And the third is efficiency. Again, when you solve the first two problems, like you assess the maturity, now you know what kind of tooling will be suitable, you know your goal. It will automatically help you reducing your regression timeline once you have automation at scale, so you will be going faster, right, to market. And that gonna bring operational efficiency, because now you do not have an army of people trying to firefight every other week to get the rules out of the door. So I take it very methodically because I'm known for that.
That's great.
I drive it with data. So that's how I approach it.
That's how every decision I believe in the world should be made, is based on data, and maybe a little bit of a hunch, but data definitely should be 100, at least 99.99% of the basis of making a decision. Quick question for the both of you. And Priyanka, you mentioned something interesting, and I'm telling you in the chat, the people is very excited about seeing that playbook. So if you can share it later, that would be amazing. You talk about a playbook and a strategy, and I imagine this probably was developed a while ago, and it keeps evolving with every implementation that you do, every team that you work with. How do you see AI fitting in that strategy now? Have you to make any changes because of the new technologies that are coming with AI embedded in it, or the AI approach that QA may be taking?
Yeah. I think again, like as you were discussing in the last talk as well. So there are bits and pieces of efficiency already there, like using Copilot to create your test cases. I think right now we can start at scale also, right? Because of AI and generative AI. So you don't have to, like, 5 years ago, if you would ask me, I would say a QA will first look at the requirement, ask questions, think about the best test cases, write it, right? We can actually speed this up. We can run through the requirement, right, with generative AI, either Copilot or ChatGPT, get the base test cases out of it, or write the base automation test, and then work upon it and scale upon it, right? So I think AI has given us the power of speed to start more faster, and my teams are definitely using it and accomplishing it. The other thing I see that very quickly we are gearing up is the agentic pipeline. So previously, like, we used to do different things using different tool. Now we have the protocols like MCP and others, where now we can put them all, thread them together. If we are doing a full pipeline, I'll give you an example of, let's say I work in the health tech, right? So I have to download CMS file, I have to write some DFD diagrams, I have to create some decision tables. All these different things could be automated in its own world and then thread together in an agentic pipeline, which does repeat and rinse together. So I see a lot of benefits using AI tools, and my teams are already using it. So yeah, that's where I see it going. And again, coming to low code, no code tools as well. The auto healing was there forever. You have used Apply tools, which I used to love, because GoodRx was very heavy on content, and I needed a human eye to go through hundreds of pages if there is any problem, because it, again, in a health tech market, and we have regulation to go through. That give us the power within minutes to like visualize two different, like, what is the baseline versus where our release is going, right? And give us the feedback very fast. So another example of AI which we used back in 2018, right? From that time onwards, AI was not even a buzzword there, but utilized there. So I think there is a lot of efficiencies around it in our industry, and people should totally use it where they can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned 2018. It sounds so far away, and definitely AI was not. I mean, buzzwords everywhere. It was back then. I believe it was big data, the big deal, and also we were talking about AI ML. And I think the ML is dropping from the acronym. But Jason, what do you have in terms of, like, same question to you? How does AI fit in the QA strategy, especially for
I
enterprise?
think we ain't talk a lot about the sort of the testing design life cycle, right? How AI can drive the efficiency. I think another one that we start seeing more and more, and I think, Katalon also as a products, how do you infuse the production insight to optimize the testing life cycle, right? For regression testing, where is the, cluster production defect, right, that we are seeing. So, given that, how do we continue to optimize the regression testing cycle? How do we make sure the testing is more effective? I think that's an angle that, like we start seeing more, and I like to continue to see more in terms of the testing design and the sort of the accelerating aspect of the testing. Like the market is getting more and more affluent, right, in terms of the offering, but using production insight to infuse the test design. That is something that we like to see more. I think the other part of it is, when you get in working with larger enterprises, how do we make sure that, we are using the AI without using the organization data to train any open AI model, right? So I think, with the product offering of able to use the proprietary instance, right? Be it on any hyperscaler, be it on any proprietary AI LLM model to design rather than dependent on an open AI. I think that's more and more ask, right, from the organization, and also honestly from the governance and compliance perspective as well. So that's another angle that something that we need to consider, right, as we continue to scale AI in QA.
As we get close to concluding our session today, I want to ask each one of you the same question. What are some of the practical moves that you would suggest that QA teams make around team structure, tools, and implementation of QA strategy? What does that, in a few words, what does that playbook look like?
In a few words, right?
Few words.
That's key.
As a copywriter, I can tell you, I just put you in a very hard spot. And there's a saying that says, if I had a lot of time, I would have written a shorter letter. So I completely understand the challenge right now. But yeah, in a few words, what would you say QA leaders should keep in mind to around team structure and tools and anything else that they would implement?
I would say that there is no silver bullet to this answer, right? It's gonna depend on the company that is trying to implement automation. So I cannot give one answer that gonna satisfy everyone. What I can say, you very generic term, be curious, be top of your industry. To be that, like, again, this kind of webinar that you are attending, you're hearing a lot of thought leaders, and to be ahead of the game, think through like what is going on. Like if you have not heard about MCP and you're hearing it first time, for me, go ahead, Google it out, see that Angie Jones and others are doing a fantastic job to bringing it in, right? Like read through it, go through all the free courses, right? Upskill yourself and try to play alongside, like get your hands dirty to it, right? And the second part of your question, Lucio, like how to do the scaling and strategy for QA, I would say more and more I see from executive, there is a hunger of bringing one team, right? So how do you give the quality to like don't keep it as a separate specialized skill? Be the
Right.
coach. When you join a company, you multiply your goodness with lot of the other folks, like educate the developers, educate the product managers, and be a multiplier force, right? Like we have so much to offer in the industry other than just validating if there is a bug or not, right? How do you multiply your goodness, your force with tooling, with your knowledge, with process? That will be my suggestion.
Thank you so much. Jason, few
Okay, I'm gonna keep it to 5 seconds in 6 words. So, building on that, like just think big, right, on all the vision that you can do, but start small and scale fast, right? This is where the platform come into the equation, standard and process come into the equation. So think big, start small, but scale fast.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to both of you. Priyanka, very excited to have you here. Jason, thank you so much for your insights. To the rest of the audience, please stay tuned. We're about to start with the next session, and the keynote is coming. You don't want to miss that one. So we will get started in just 1 minute. We'll be right back. Priyanka, Jason, thank you so much. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm Lucio, your host today, and we are going to moderate this session called Achieving ROI and the Business Case for QA Investments. Now, more than ever, QA leaders are being asked to justify their spend, and not just in tools, but also people, infrastructure, and time. And yet, QA, when it's done right, it delivers. So, according to the State of Quality report, organizations that prioritize QA see fewer defects, higher customer retention, and lower operational costs. So why, if this is what the report is telling us and what the audience is telling us, why are some teams still struggling to see that kind of ROI? What is it that is separating them from the rest of the team? So we're going to break that down in today's conversation, and I'm joined here by two seasoned leaders, Andrew Hammond from KGR and also Suraj Yadav from Quality Kiosk. Giraffe, Andrew, sir, how are you guys doing today?
Absolutely great, Lucio. Thanks for asking. I've been going through the previous sessions also, by the way, since
Oh, excellent. All righty.
Really enjoying the conversations. Happy to be here. Happy to be once again with you on the panelists to speak on one another interesting topic on choosing ROI. First of all, thank you for choosing me to speak on this topic. This is one of my interesting topics as well to speak. This is something I've been going through from past many years with many customers. So I'll be really glad to share my views and insights today on this summit.
All righty, excellent. Thank you so much. And Andrew, where are you joining us from? Each one of you. So, Andrew, where are you at in the world?
Yes, I'm joining from Australia. So it's very, very early in the morning on our Anzac Day morning. So today it's a public holiday where we honor our veterans that have helped to give us the life we have. So, but that's good. I'm always up for a good chat, and looking forward again to discussing this topic, because it's an area that I think as quality professionals we don't often sort of share our insights and tell people about all the good things we're doing. So it's going to be
excellent.
Looking forward to a great chat.
Well, I appreciate your presence here, especially on a holiday, and this early in the morning for you. So thank you so much for being here. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So let's start with the challenge. This is a question that I believe a lot of people are wondering about. How is it that QA can be quantified as the impact or the business impact of QA can be quantified? And this is the conversation we're going to talk about today, because there is a challenge that teams face. As you may know, and the rest of the audience, if you're just joining us, we are going through all the insights of the State of Software Quality report. And one of the questions that we got there is that 26% of respondents told us that they still don't know how to measure or what is their return of investment of their automation efforts. And that, I believe, is a problem, especially if you're trying to secure budget for your for the work that you're doing, right? So the main question to both of you is, how do you clearly measure the ROI and how do you, not only how do you measure, but how do you actually communicate the value of QA in terms of a speed of releases, a level of quality and operational efficiency in the enterprise or teams or organizations? What can you tell us about that?
Well, you want to go, Andrew?
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to. I was waiting for you, so I'm happy to jump in. So the way that I like to do it as often as QA professionals, we're last to the party because we're waiting on developers and there's less time and more pressure to get stuff done. So the way I always like to do it is to try and quantify the automation, and particularly when we're talking about automation, is about the manual hours that we've saved. So it's what would be the equivalent manual effort, and we've had a couple of projects where we've tracked that, and we've been able to save days and weeks at a time, and actually get to the point where our project managers are so not reliant on automation, but they want automation to happen because they know that we can get a baseline of testing done in a sort of an overnight manner instead of taking a week. So they're kind of pushing it. So I think that's the piece I like, is to say, well, by doing this, what time are we saving, and how is that a tangible saving?
Yeah.
Well,
So, Suraj, what do you think? What are some metrics, and how would you measure and communicate that to higher levels?
yeah, well, Lucio, if you ask me, this has been a very common problem which I've been going through past decade, more than a decade. Let's say in the late 2020s, if you really ask, clients were still kind of struggling. And today also, possibly the number of clients who are still struggling on the need of QA could be less. But yes, there are still a few bit who are on the edge of deciding whether really getting a team for QA or really investing more on QA makes a lot of sense for them or not. The reason for it is because there is still a hype that possibly QA or quality engineering, whatever you give it, is kind of looked upon as an overhead. Okay, while it comes at the fag end, people still have the perception that it is going to only add to the time that it will take for you to launch the product or application. While many of them have come out from that myopia in terms of what is the exact value it can deliver. Okay, so what I want to give a message to all the audience out here is QA is not a kind of an overhead, or neither is it something that is going to come and actually sit on your head. Is it basically, it is meant for your actual end users who are kind of coming into your system and helping you to give you a real time feedback of your application right in the actual environment before your actual users give you that feedback. So if you treat the QA team as your actual end users, then you can understand the kind of impact the kind of QA actually makes on your life cycle. The kind of experience today, if you really see, what is kind of been looked upon as only QA as a testing, but QA is no more now as a part of testing. It's more to do with the experience, the time it takes for you to launch a product. Okay, earlier when you used to kind of grapple up with lot of manual testing, repeated testing, doing the same things again and again. Now the kind of essence it provides, the velocity that which you're working tandem with the developers. Okay, so you're not kind of eating up their time. In fact, you're saving their time, which is going to come up after you see a lot of defects come into the later stage of the life cycle. So the amount of business benefit that you actually get after you take this product into the production eventually helps you build a larger ROI. It is not that only you have to measure the ROI in terms of defect detection rates or maybe in terms of velocity. These are the very two basic metrics anybody will measure. I will rather say the metric should be identify how much of your support tickets or support incidents the QA team has been able to reduce. Amount of cost you would have saved for the time that your development team would have spent in terms of fixing those particular incidents which have been appearing in production. Measure the amount of experience which users would have lost through when they would have got a deteriorated experience for some measure of that. So all these factors eventually contribute a lot to see that you're able to get a good customer retention rate, as well as it is good in terms of acquiring new customers also. Then I think it gives a good realization of why one should go and really invest for having more and more QA in the organization.
That's great. And so you talked about the basic metrics, right? And that's something that anyone can measure, but sadly it may be understood only by those who are measuring those metrics, say all the QA teams. And if you start talking about defects and all that, how do you translate those numbers into something that is impactful for the business? So say you're going to a board meeting and then, hey, these are the metrics that I have, and then they may go like, okay, so what, what is that, how does that translation look like?
Yeah, I think it's again an interesting question. So the important thing here is for anybody is how do you quantify? What is the quantifiable measure through which one can agree that yes, it makes sense for me to really invest in QA? The biggest metric I will say is measure. Let's I will explain with an example. Let's say for one of the largest insurers, the kind of number of new product launches, what is important for an insurance customer in any country these days. Okay, how fast they can go live with the products, and how many products that you can go live, right, in a year. Now imagine if you are able to help them increase the velocity, okay, the time that you take to go live with a product and maintain that product in a production environment, vis-a-vis if you have been able to increase the number of products. Okay, let's say if you are taking 6 products in a year, now if you have suddenly moved from 6 to 8 or 10, the amount of additional revenue that the customer will get with no more number of products getting launched higher is actually going to be much more than what amount you would have spent in QA. That is a direct measurable or a comparison benefit that you will see in terms of business. And the second example, like I mentioned before also, could be in terms of the amount which we would have incurred in kind of fixing a problem in production. Just imagine the cost of fixing a defect in production could be as expensive as what you could have actually detected in the early stages of development.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think just to sort of emphasize that point, I think if we need to be speaking the language of the people that we're talking to in terms of like the business, if it's the board, the board are interested in, retained users on an average customer life, revenue and stuff like that. So if we can start to sort of speak the language and present our savings in that same language, then it's easier to translate from that perspective. So I think because a lot of the time when we, as QA professionals, we're talking about lots of bugs and, tests run and stuff like that. And it's sort of a lot of the C-suite don't kind of understand, well, what does that mean? But yeah, to the point earlier, is if we can start to talk about how many new features have been, put through, and do we get an extra feature because of the testing, or because we increase the quality of the product going out. And I think that's the key. And it's not an easy translation or a direct one, but one that I think we need to work on and consistently be there. Because often, I'm not sure about your observations too, but a lot of the time, testers and QA professionals, because we're kind of airing dirty laundry about how bad things are, we don't often talk about how good things are and how we've helped. Right. So again, it's just trying to change that narrative just a touch, so that we can sort of talk about the extra things that we've enabled to happen, not all the things that we've stopped or that we've said are too broken to go forward.
So we've talked about metrics, and I want to switch gears a little bit, because also I believe there is a responsibility or something to be said about the tooling, right? And not necessarily the tools that you're working with, but the vendors of those tools that you're trying to work with. And this is something very cool that we discovered with the report, where 45% of respondents told us that QA teams are dissatisfied with the vendors that they're using. That is almost half of all the respondents. And with so many options in the market, this raises a big question, which I want to bring to the two of you, is like, when it comes to evaluating or looking for vendors, what is it that you're looking the most to bring that will drive value in terms of business outcomes?
Okay, well, if I look at this question as a customer, for some time I will wear a customer hat and look at this question. So how would I kind of evaluate a vendor for any particular implementation of a tool, or for any service that I'm actually rendering from that vendor? So the biggest confusion that comes for any customer is all the vendors coming and talking good about the experience, about the products, certifications, people, etc. The biggest difference, I would rather say, comes in when you are actually able to show referenceable customers, when you're able to show actual implementation success stories. That exactly makes a lot of difference, because that's where the customer has to see the value exactly where and what have you done, number one. Number two, in the related space. Okay, if you're going and let's say if you're choosing a vendor who has worked in a similar area but very different on a complete different tech stack, while what we are expecting is different, also doesn't make sense. So only going and making a choice for selecting a vendor only because the vendor has worked on the tool doesn't make a lot of sense. Number two is, okay, what is the promise that the vendor is able to get? is the vendor only going to come and provide you service, or is the vendor really also going to work with a commitment or an SLA? Because only those vendors who have really been proven in the industry or who are confident of delivering an experience can only work with certain commitments and SLAs. So that requires a lot of experience, that requires a lot of confidence, and kind of the risk and the things that they have gone through in the past. So all of these things together actually makes a good criteria for any customer to really choose a vendor when you're actually going for an implementation or so. It's not about making a choice on a short run for a one time success, but it's all about making a long term investment. Because if you have a vendor who is future ready, or if you have a vendor who has a vision for kind of creating a good roadmap for you, then I think you're on the right path.
So it is. I believe it is more of a partnership, right? Than just selecting a solution that is gonna do something for you. Andrew, let me pick your brain on this. Where do these partnerships go wrong more often?
I think it comes to, or often comes down to, and it's the same problem I think we have as QAs, is about understanding the requirement of the partnership, which kind of sounds a little bit strange, is it? But we're not sort of, if there's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding about what is it that you're bringing to the partnership, then that's where it often goes wrong. Because often we'll see, if someone thought you were going to do, come and do manual and automated testing, for example, but the team that rocks up, or the team that's there, is only capable of manual and not automation, or automation not manual, then it leads to a level of sort of inadvertently distrust. So I think that's the key piece there for me, is trying to get to that point where both parties, because the partnership is about a joint outcome, and so a shared outcome. So I think that's the piece where you often see things sort of go awry, is where there's a misunderstanding between the parties, and then that leads to some dissatisfaction. So I think it's key, if you can, in any whether it's an organizational level or a team level or an individual level, is to understand, well, what is it that you're bringing to the partnership? What is it that's required from the other side, and what are they bringing, so that you're aligned there? Is definitely the way I.
On the other hand, what do you think? And this is for both of you, Suraj. Feel free to jump in as well. What are some signs that you can identify that tells you that the vendor is actually going to support your long-term goals and have a strong relationship with you?
Yeah, I think that definitely you start to feel almost like you're finishing each other's sentences in meetings and conversations, and I think that's the key, where I've seen certainly with our team over the years, is that's the piece where it's whoever you're talking to is talking about a release, but you're on the same page, and you understand it, and you understand that the dynamics of that release or that activity, and you're kind of finishing each other's sentences, or you're arriving at risk to the same point. Like, oh, did you think of that? Oh, yeah, I thought of that already. So I think that's key, and also thinking about, it's not often the work that we do is time boxed and time pressured. And not to say that shouldn't be there, but when you start to have conversations that look a little bit into the future and are less about the time, more about the outcome. It's like, what are we going to achieve in this activity, as opposed to, will you be done next week, or will you be done in 3 weeks' time?
Exactly. Yeah, Suraj, what do you think?
I think I will second with everything that Andrew mentioned. It's all about building with a vision, working with a vision, in terms of how much are you ready for your future, what new goals are you planning. The vendor should not be kind of focused with respect to what is the current state of things, or what is the current scheme of ask. But I think if you're actually partnering with a vendor who is able to bring you a long-term perspective of things, which will help you build an ROI, not just for today, but for the next 5 years or 10 years, then I think you're in hands of a good vendor, rather, I would say.
Excellent. Perfect. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and switch into and the next topic of this conversation, because, I think we both agree, or the three of us can agree, that it is not about just selecting the right tool, but selecting the right partner that is going to help you throughout with your goals. Like Andrew said, make sure that you're literally finishing each other's sentences and everybody's on the same page. And I think the key for that is to make sure that your partner knows, or absolutely has experience in that field, not only as a vendor, but also as a practitioner. So alignment on goals is 100% needed. So let's go ahead and talk now about the what set ROI achievers apart. So let's one of the things that we also uncover in the report is that 21% of only 21% of teams are reporting seeing a strong ROI in the QA industry. To your knowledge and based on your and also your experience, what is it that sets these teams apart versus those who are only breaking even? So again, there's a group of them who are actually saying, yeah, we're seeing return of investment. There's another set of people who are saying, this is breaking even. What do you think is the difference between these two teams?
So, Lucy, I may say that I am not at all surprised with the responses that we have gone for this question. And one of the primary reasons, which is very common across all these many years, is the expectations from automation. Okay, where it goes a little twist. So I've seen talking to also many customers because they're still in the era that everything has to be automated. Okay, it has to be 100% automated. Is it really needed for anybody? Okay, we'll have to first kind of go back and check what is the kind of need for anybody to go for automation, and exactly where and in which area ideally you should really explore automation so that you get the desired benefit. Just because I want to reach the benchmark or the baseline of kind of sharing that, okay, we have reached a line of 100% or 90% automation coverage, doesn't help. Eventually, what is the benefit that you are going to get after you use automation is what matters. Second is also in terms of after you've got into automation, have you built the right strategy for automation? Okay. It's not that because everybody's excited, you all of a sudden decide, okay, we all want to do automation and we just jump into it without defining a right strategy, without defining a right framework. And then eventually it leads to high maintenance efforts, lot of rework, lot of redoing the same stuff because of changes, etc. Rather, just like for any project to be successful, the project planning phase is the most crucial part. If you have done the project planning right, you should be able to deliver the project also successfully. Same is the actual story for automation also. If you're able to sit down and rightly define the strategy for automation, for what purpose we are for doing the automation, what is the exact thing are we going to do, what is the plan, what kind of people skill sets are we looking, how are we going to also kind of think of running this automation after you have gone live. If you have given a good thought behind all of this before you have started getting into automation, I think it should really solve the problem rather than just kind of jumping into it and deciding because we all have to do automation, we have to run with an aggressive target. We directly, in the realm of things, in the hurry of kind of closing things quickly, we just kind of go and do it. And then lately we realize that, okay, we have spent so much of time, so much of money, efforts, everything, but we are still at the same place where we were before even we started the journey for automation. So that's the second thing. And the third, again, and not the last, is basically the skill gaps also. So while no code automation tools, AI automation tools are meant for people who are possibly not so good on the technology side, it is meant for enabling people who are good at domain, good at manual testing. But the thing is, if you are not coming up the speed in terms of the actual purpose of automation and just doing it because it does something for you, is not going to help. So even if automation is there for you, it is actually supporting you to do easily, to do like in a user friendly mode. One has to understand the actual crux of how you have to build a successful automation thing. So that is also another important thing. How do you continuously coach and enable your teams to build the right automation? Else otherwise it is just like giving the tool or a product in the hands of a person and expecting a magic to be created because it's a no code automation product and it has to create magic. That doesn't work. So it requires a lot of mentorship, it requires a lot of strategic thinking at the beginning, and then if you put the right time and efforts, I think you should be expecting a good result out of it.
That answers a question that I had here, which is, what is the role of leadership? What is the role that leadership plays in making sure that teams are or get shifting to ROI focused QA teams rather than let's just go ahead and create solutions. Andrew, question for you: do you think it's about the tools or how the tools are being used?
I think it's a little bit of column A and column B. So I think that just reflecting on that, some of the work that we do is, I think we don't, again, we don't talk about it. So I think the teams that are achieving that higher ROI are probably measuring and reporting on their activities more so than the other teams that are not. They're just sort of getting that mindset where it's like, I've got to produce the report, got to get the testing finished, and then you just move on. So I think that's probably where it comes back to in terms of how you've got to actively think about what are you doing and how are you getting results from this strategy. So I think that's probably the key piece where it's again, I like to think about it as it's the conversation to have that, making sure we're having a conversation that includes all of the good things that we're doing, not just that we got a result.
Right, absolutely. Well, as we come on time, I want to ask you both if, or for all the leaders that are listening today, if there is one piece of advice that you want to give them in terms of measuring ROI, in terms of achieving ROI, and also communicating the ROI to leadership, what would you tell them? Suraj, I want to start with you.
Yeah. Possibly I can answer this question with a joke that I remember. Okay, this is a joke between a CEO and a CFO. If many of you must have heard, right? A CFO asking a CEO whether we should really invest in our employees for training if they're not going to remain with you for a longer time, right? So why should we invest so much of cost and everything in training them if there is no assurance with them? And what the CEO answers that if you don't train them today, somebody else will train and actually take the curve ahead. So that's exactly the answer out here is also that life is all about a race. There is a competition involved. While you may think that you are saving on the cost, somebody else out there is investing this money into a better outcome to win the race eventually for them. So if you have to stay ahead of the curve, the choice is yours to decide exactly what you have to do. That's the thing I'll leave with it.
Andrew?
Yeah, nice. Hard to follow that one up. I think the old adage is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I think from that perspective, it's like you've got to you have to use the tools that are available to you, measure what you're actually achieving with those tools and with those ROI, and then manage it from there and to get a better result. So I think it's a very similar sentiments there. It's you got to do it purposely, and then if it's not returning ROI, and then you can make an actual decision, an informed decision rather than just we ran out of time or our automation team lead left or whatever that scenario is, and then it just falls by the wayside. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Suraj. Thank you, Andrew, so much for your insights and your participation today. I hope both of you have a wonderful day. It was a fantastic conversation. To the rest of the audience, please stay tuned. We're about to have a wonderful closing keynote where we're going to have Joe Colantonio, Rossi Sherry, Daniel Forer. We have Alex Martins from Katalon. We have a lot of people to have a 1-hour conversation that you don't want to miss. So stay with us. We're about to start in a couple of minutes. I'm going to fix a couple of things here for you, and we will get started. Again, everyone, thank you so much. Suraj, Andrew, pleasure talking to you. The topic today is we're going to talk about the future of QA, and this is super exciting because actually Alex and I were having a conversation yesterday. We were back and forth, and Alex was like, "Listen, I don't know how QAs feel about everything else that is going on in the organization." And I told Alex, and I was like, "Hey, we have the opportunity to shift this and let people understand that QA is more about just fixing bugs, right? It's more about is a strategic." Or it deserves a strategic seat in the table, and as we saw in previous sessions, those who are seeing QA as a strategic asset rather than just bug fixing or as a transactional asset in the organization are seeing better results with customers, with improvements in their products and relationship with their customers, and at the end of the day, reputation with their products. So. One of the statistics that I want to bring to the table for us to share is We know that 11% of QA teams, as we mentioned at the very first session, report having fully optimized processes, and they consider themselves being mature. So I want to go ahead and start diving into this first segment. And to set the stage, all of us are going to interrupt everybody. We're going to have a conversation about this topic here. And the statistics that we're seeing here from the report, it tells us that 52% of teams are now actively involving customers through beta, feedback loops, etc. And many companies are seeing the QA just as a bug fixing. So I want to start the conversation with this main question: is how do we shift that perception to, like, how do we help teams understand that bug fixing is not your only role, that QA has more of a strategic seat at the organizational table? Any one of you feel free to jump in. Any ideas?
I'll start. So in the past 5 years, and I've worked in both industry and now government, learning that and teaching that, the earlier a QA person can be involved in the discussions, the build, the design, we ask questions that others do not ask. And I think that exposes a lot of areas and things that would normally not come up if it's a 6-month project and then it gets tossed over the fence to QA to just test it at the end, or even a 2-year project. So the earlier we can be brought in and create a strategic test plans, create our user sets, get data-driven, components put together in order to compile and, do the full testing suites when it's time, we're that much more effective. And then it could be followed up with automation after, manual testing is done. But trying to, the whole shift left testing, that's coming about with Agile and everything that all of the companies are diving into, I think it just speaks to letting us have a seat at the table early and being part of the conversation to ask the questions that others may not think of.
Having a seat on the table early, that's key, and I've heard that term multiple times today throughout the session. Rosie, I want to pick your brain on this. What, from the community side, I know you must talk to tons of people. What insights can you share in terms of this question right here? Like, how do we make that shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that 52%, like you said, of people are getting, or quality people are getting involved with customers. And I think that's already a sign that QA people, testers, are getting more involved in the whole life cycle. If you were to think about that many years ago, perhaps that figure wouldn't be so high. But definitely one of the trends that we've been seeing and exploring at Ministry of Testing is kind of the idea of systems thinking. And I think testing fits in really well into the idea that we need to look at the whole business, the whole ecosystem in a more systematic way. And because testing kind of touches on so many parts of the business and the ecosystem, the customers, the product, we're basically having conversations with everyone, then as professionals, we should probably be looking to explore what systems thinking is and learn to apply that within our day-to-day work. It doesn't mean it's easy, but I think along the way we can find ways to do that, to kind of step up, so to speak, to find our voice and to invite ourselves to meetings, to look to understand what it is around us and to identify essentially like risks, which is what testing often comes down to.
Joe, I see you nodding. It looks like you're agreeing to some of this stuff. And you're also in the community. Tell us what's in your mind.
I think Rosie nailed it. I think we sometimes need to advocate for ourselves, and it's not showing that we're not a roadblock. We're adding value. We're giving information that's giving them information to make them feel confident if it's ready to release the product or not. So rather than being seen as a roadblock, we need more time to say, hey, all right, if you want to release in 2 weeks, here are the tests, here are the results, here's the risk areas, giving them proper information to make them make an informed decision, I think goes a long way, for sure. also in a real world where I saw this really work really well was at GE, where QA or testers used to go visit customers, radiologists, and watch them in their workflow. And then they go back and go, oh my gosh, these UX designs, all this is not what the radiologist really wants. Let's change it before we release this feature. And by doing that, we saved a lot of time and a lot of effort. So being more proactive, really getting to know your customer, being an advocate for your customer, and then showing the value really goes a long way. And also every month, I used to like to give a report to my manager, say, hey, here are all the bugs we found. But because our team found it, it wasn't released to production, we saved this amount of time, this amount of money. Also helped build quality into it and let them see, hey, this team is not a money, where it's a value add rather than sinking money into something.
Right, and that goes along with what we were discussing in the previous session of how do you make a case for QA? And I was talking to the speakers about what are the metrics that you bring up, and some of them were like, yeah, bug fixes and all these were those are the basics, but at the end you want to get to a point where like, hey, this is what it's doing for your product, and this is how we justify the investment. Alex, what do you have for us? Drop some knowledge.
I think the team here, covered it all. The only thing I would add, so I don't repeat what the amazing insights they provided is, and I think Joe touched on it a little bit, which is the GE example, right? I think having the SDLC type of metrics from requirements, from the release plan, etc. And basically, as Danielle and Rosie were saying, informing, right, the organization, giving them information so they can act or make decisions. I think that's something that absolutely needs to exist, but something that perhaps can reinforce that or maybe make that case stronger is if you bring data, bring information from the end users, right? So understanding also, hey, here's what the business wanted from a requirements perspective. Here's the current state of quality as we see it, and as development team, QA team, everybody internal to the organization sees it. But also, look, here are the insights from real users that are going to get impacted when we release this next, right? So enabling the QA team to understand and have metrics, have information from the end users, how they are using the application, which are the main flows that they're going through, where we're seeing friction, basically people dropping off of different flows. And also correlating that, what matters to the users, to the end users, correlating that to what we are testing in the release cycle itself is huge, right? It basically makes the case stronger from a quality engineering perspective to our management to say, hey, look, from our internal perspective, here's our assessment of the current state of the application. Look, our users are using it this way. They value these things that we are not focusing so much, right? So if we want to really make sure we have the right level of quality, right, going out the door in this next release, we need to consider these additional scenarios that perhaps our requirements were not accounting for, perhaps management was not valuing enough, and so on and so forth. So bringing the two perspective, right, the shift left and shift right, so to speak, that Danielle mentioned, I think that makes the case stronger to put QE on the table, or giving QE a seat at the table, and really have the voice be heard.
So it looks like we're talking about alignment here, right? So, and one of the questions that I want to ask all of you, and Danielle, if you want to start with this, I'm very curious. How are high performing teams aligning QA with product and support? Because to Alex's point, it's not just, hey, QA is going to do its thing, and then there is no communication between the other teams. Have you seen this in some of the teams that you have been working with, or that you have worked with? In how does that alignment happen to make sure that the outcomes are positive?
I think a lot of times working hand in hand with the developers on the front end of it, to where we're seeing how they're, coding and unit testing their features. And then on the back end of it, even before it gets to production, to where support would have to take over any production issues, going through a UAT cycle with the business users to make sure, did we truly deliver, even as QAs, what the customer is expecting? So that way, even before production, we get another look at, is everything in alignment? Is everything correct of what they're looking at? And then previously, I've also worked with teams where they trained support. So the QAs would work with the support staff to say, this is what's coming out, like a production notes summary of, the enhancements or embellishments, what we're getting done to different applications and products. So that way you could support the teams as they were dealing with production issues.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And so then, Joe, do you share some examples like GE? Rosie, do you have a practical example like similar to what Joe just shared about? How is it that the alignment happens? What is like almost like what is the involvement of development and QA with the customers and bringing them into the process to ensure quality?
I've been thinking about one angle, which is completely related to community as well.
Yeah.
So like part of my expertise is community building, and I've been going deep into the world of community. And what I discovered recently is actually there's a lot of similarities with testing. So like community, similar to testing, over the years has kind of been pushed to the side. It's not been kind of that well respected or well valued. Community is everywhere, a bit like testing is everywhere. Testing needs to happen in so many places. And I guess related to this is something that I've been thinking about is like community is care, and like quality is care as well, right? We have to care about the product. So if we're thinking about like cultures and how to build better quality products, I've been thinking in terms of, well, we should all care and we should all find ways to care, and then we should communicate that care and advocate for ourselves, or find all these little dots that connect the dots between each other to show that we can improve the quality of a product throughout the whole system. And again, that kind of ties back to systems thinking, but I think like having a team that truly cares about the overall goal means that we look for opportunities to improve what we're doing. But if we don't care, then we're not looking for those, and then therefore the quality of the product doesn't improve. So yeah, that's I guess my take comparing testing and community.
I am going to guess that the next question, the answer is going to be quote unquote a lot, but I'm going to ask you anyways. How important is the community in testing? How important is to build that or have that support across multiple minds who have multiple experiences in tools, approaches, community in general? How or if you don't mind sharing a little bit of what drove you to and what drives you on a daily basis to continue supporting the QA industry throughout your community.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I feel like we deserve better, and that's what's kind of always driven me. And also that we could do better. And in the early days, I was very much inspired by the design and developer communities and what they were doing, and I didn't feel like we had that as a testing community. So for me, it was essentially about driving innovation through connection and conversations and exploration, and trying to innovate again with care, with creativity, to help each other out. And I think it's quite important, especially in like smaller teams where a lot of people, perhaps, especially these days, as test managers are less and less popular, or there's less of them basically. A lot of testers feel quite isolated and they don't have other testers to speak to. So having a community dedicated to testers where they can gather in whatever way they feel able to helps them re-energize themselves to think better about how they can apply quality practices for their team.
Joe, same to you. I'm curious to see your perspective on community as well. And like I said, I imagine the answer is going to be, yeah, it matters a lot. But I'm curious to hear what drives that community.
I'll take it from a different angle because I think Rosie nailed it from the like a global perspective outside of different companies. Inside of companies, I think Danielle may have mentioned this in the pre-show of actually having a like almost a brown bag or like a guild within your company. I used to work for once again large company. We had like 10 sprint teams, and they were all working on different products, and they were all solving the same thing, but they weren't communicating with one another. So we used to have like a weekly QA or testers call just for software testers to come up and say, hey, we actually solved this problem. And this other group that may have been trying to solve it, oh, that's great. Let me implement it. So having that community within your organizations as well is a big win. So being able to bounce ideas to one another, even though you may not be in the same silo, the same business, you're in the same company, and being able to support each other and share ideas is a big win at that level as well. I think a lot of people miss out on. They just say, "Oh, keep my head down. I'm working on my product," rather than the whole company wide.
Alex, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I host a monthly QA community of practice call, and it's not just within my own laboratory, but across the DOE lab. So it's expansive. It's other labs that use Katalon as well. And every month we try to do a different topic, and just have an open forum discussion to see how everyone's doing, what they're trying to learn,
right.
Who's struggling, and we find it really effective to kind of just, like Joe said, build that community. You're not alone. You do have other people out there. And then we have people that are not QA, but they're interested to see how we approach things. They want to learn why we're testing things the way that we're testing, because they're the product owner or the Scrum Master or a developer. And the people that don't understand the testing world want to be involved.
Right. Alex, I want to pick your brain on that as well, because prior to your existing role, and I imagine many lives before, you were doing testing also. Can you share a little bit about how the benefit that communities brought to your day to day?
Yeah, I'll take the rest of the session.
There you go. Yes, please.
Just a little bit. No, I think what Danielle was saying is, so when I was working for an airline, establishing their COE, we did that. So like in the brown bag sessions, like we would go to the cafeteria, bring up a projector, right? So lunchtime was not something that we would do just like us as a several testing teams. It would be, hey, let's just take over the cafeteria. We hook up a projector, bring up a few laptops, and let's start sharing. So what that resulted in was the teams outside of the quality engineering team started seeing, gaining visibility into the world of quality, what goes on there. It's a lot of work. In many cases, people just think, oh, these guys are just testing, right? They're just testing what we're doing. So first of all, it gave them an appreciation for the amount of work that needs to be put in by other, by people that are focusing on quality. And then the second benefit is that as these teams from different business units, so think you have the reservations business unit, you have the revenue management, you have the ticketing, you have the airport operations. So all of these testing teams were now sharing openly what they were doing, how they were automating their tasks, how they were doing requirements analysis, and et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden now these different teams that usually don't talk, they're from different business units, they're like, oh, I'm from airport operations. What do I need for me to actually test, the check-in process, right? A passenger gets up to the counter, starts checking in. What do I need? Well, I need a record locator, right? A reservation confirmation number. Well, the QA team that's doing the testing, the reservations department, they have all that. That's the output of their test. Can I basically take that as my test data to start my testing workflow in the airport operations, right? So now all of a sudden you have this collaboration that was not designed, like we never planned to do that, but it started organically. The collaboration started organically just by giving each other visibility in a forum that's super informal, super open. Everybody comes in and shares. in the beginning, we didn't have an agenda. It was literally come in, bring your laptop, hook it up, and share the stuff you're doing. Even if it's a question or you're posing a problem, right? We'll work through it together as a team while we're having lunch. And then eventually it became, something more formal with an agenda and all that. But yeah, community is extremely important to bring that sense of I'm not alone, right?
Right.
I have problems. Everybody has problems. Let's try to share and see how we can help each other out.
Oh, sorry, I'm pushing things in here. So now
I got the cue.
No, that was not it. But I wanted to bring us to, because you mentioned something very interesting, and it was almost a transition from, and you just said it a couple of seconds ago. At the beginning, it was a bunch of laptops. It was just sit here, have a sandwich, and talk. And then it became something more formal. And I want to talk about maturity, because I believe that's an indicator, right? So the beginning, you don't know what you're doing, and even in communication terms. So you may have remembered that if you were here in the first session, we talked about what separates teams from mature teams and those who represent low maturity. And we asked this question in the survey. And then we discovered that only 11% of people or teams believe that they have optimized and mature processes in place, and also there is a different percentage in there that believe that they don't have optimized processes. So the reason why I make the relationship to the story that you're telling, Alex, is because when it looks like you went from something that was almost abstract to like, okay, now we're going to standardize this process because we need interrelations in the company for everybody to understand how testing is working. So I want to ask all of you in the panel, the main question is like, what strategies have you seen work especially in previous jobs or conversations that you have been having with community members? What strategies have you seen work when it comes to building a lasting culture of quality? Then again, from going from completely unstructured processes to a continuous improved embedded model.
What I found is tool selection may seem kind of odd, but getting everyone on board, not saying you should use this tool. Each team is different. So getting the whole team involved, selecting tools and what your main motivation is and how it's going to work, and actually having them run it through a sprint to say, hey, this is actually going to help our quality, or is it actually going to slow us down? So being open-minded that way seemed to help. So the team gets excited if they use a tool and they say, hey, this is actually going to help us save time. Or this isn't going to work. Before you say this is the tool we need to use, let's get rid of it, and making sure that everyone has a say rather than top down saying thou shall use these tools. Because a lot of developers are really picky if they're in a certain ecosystem and the tooling doesn't actually fit into the ecosystem. They need to change context. It's going to throw them off. And I think tooling isn't the answer, but it goes a long way to make sure everyone's on the same. At least discussing and using the same tooling that's going to help them be successful overall.
So do you think standardization helps scale quality in organizations?
Standardization within your team, yeah. Not standardization if you say, okay, this is the tool everyone's going to use within the company, and the company has 50 different verticals. I don't see that. But having a center of excellence used to be out of style, and now it's coming back in style. I think that helps drive, once again, QA maturity, because you're using lessons learned, and when people, rather than starting from scratch, can see what's working from other organizations, can help overall lift the quality among all the other divisions, I think.
Yeah. Let me pick your brain about that a little bit, because one of the topics that I wanted to discuss earlier was strategically, what is better? Is it to have a center of excellence or to have quality? Not spread sounds like almost like a negative connotation, but actually the quality embedded across all product teams. So is it better to have a center or to have a distribution of power?
About both. So you have a center of excellence that maybe handles the main things, and then you have I always think of a tester embedded in a sprint team as the main driver. They're almost like a shepherd of everything. They may not know how to do everything specifically, but they know enough to say, hey, we should be doing security testing, performance testing. And then they can talk to the center of excellence and say, okay, helping spread the message throughout the organization. So it's not a top down, bottom up either.
Right.
It's both of them working together in tandem. I think works the best.
Danielle, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially with people working on agile teams, right? You need that dedicated resource or maybe a split resource to be able to focus on one thing at a time, not, completely context switching every 5 seconds, but having that overarching center of excellence or community that they learn the standard, testing approaches, testing types, learning new tools, trying to, increase their knowledge of QA as a whole versus just on a specific product that they're working on at the time, because projects come and go, tools come and go. We see things fluctuate day to day depending on what you're working on, and some may last longer than others, but I think the mix, and then a lot of it, I believe, is tied to your support from leadership. If you have leaders that are supporting your QA efforts and driving the teams, understanding your return on investment, I believe that's a great booster for QA teams in general.
Rosie, I'm curious to hear from you in terms of community members that you have spoken to. Also, the main question is like, how do you see it, or do they see, or have you perceived that these organizations see quality as a shared goal, or does it belong to one team only?
I think it's definitely going towards being shared. There's definitely like a theme of continuous quality. We've spoken a lot about in the recent past, like shift left, but more recently I've been hearing shift right, and then also shift everywhere. It's like, quality is not just at the beginning, it's everywhere, and you have to figure out what kind of testing to do at each point that you're building at that point in time. And you can't necessarily do all the testing at the beginning. And then I guess alongside that comes things like pairing. I think you can pair it in lots of ways. It's not just pair testing. It's doing tasks together with testers, with product people, with developers, whatever it is. Every time you pair, you're kind of learning something as you go, and you're learning about the other person or the way they're doing things. So that's definitely something that's come up, and then I guess there's also coaching, like quality coaching, as a bit of a trend, especially when there's less test managers. And some teams or some companies have quality coaches that move around to support product quality when with less testing staff potentially. It's like that's definitely what I'm seeing.
Quality coaching. Let me pick your brain a little bit about that. Can we double click on that term for a second so the audience is clear? How would you define that?
Oh, you're putting me in the spot now. The way I see it is that I believe, like, as a quality coach, you're there to support the team or individuals in the team to do better, to adopt better practices. And one quality coach might be a part of many teams, for example, going around and supporting that. And I guess that's how I see it.
Excellent. Alex, I want to put you. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Do you have something?
I was just going to say what I also found was helpful is having, like, I know people hate metrics, but JARA metrics. I know Lisa Crispin talks a lot about in Agile, where she sees teams that are high performing. A lot of them are really using the JARA metrics to help give them information on how well they're doing with their with their overall efforts. So making sure you have something in place that is not punitive, but is giving real insight into your teams, how well they're doing, so they can improve on it. And measuring it is a big deal.
That's very cool. Alex, I want to pick your brain as well, because I think this is a conversation that internally you and I have had recently a lot. And it's like, how do you balance automation with the human side of testing in an enterprise?
Yeah, it's it's one of those things that we some people say we've been trying to end the days of manual testing, right? For at least 2 decades. And And the reality is, automation is, has always had certain challenges. And we hope that we're close to addressing some of those challenges, at least with the new wave of technology coming in. And I don't want to say the magic two letter word. But I think the human aspect of testing is something that's really unique, because if you think about how a testing professional looks at an application or looks at a problem in general, and then you look at or you ask for somebody outside of testing in the SDLC, so let's say a developer or a product owner, they will bring a different perspective. They look at the same problem and they see different things. It's as simple as that. So if you think about automating, what that person, what that testing professional can do, obviously there's a lot of things you can do, mostly from a mechanical perspective, right? So if I'm clicking on something, I can automate that. If I'm typing something and it's supposed to happen every time the same way, I can do something. But the actual value is really how you look at a certain, to be more practical, look at a certain requirement, and you start thinking about how that connects to your SME knowledge about the business of your company, and then how do you actually now provide an assessment on the application, right, on the current state of the application? Because it's not just about, is it passing or is it failing? Is it, conforming to requirements? It's really about looking at the application and providing a thorough assessment, both from a functionality perspective, usability, performance, security, right? It's a very holistic way that a professional tester can do just as part of their day to day. And if you ask a developer or somebody else to do that same assessment, it's not going to it's not going to consider all the different aspects that that somebody that is a tester or has been doing testing can see, right? So I think that the value that that person brings to the organization is really unique, and I think that's not always coming across. And I think Joe talked about metrics and the DORA metrics. I think one of the things that I've seen where the quality engineering organization starts getting more heard is when they start not just talking or not just communicating in terms of defects, in terms of test cases, right, that we ran, that we passed, that failed, etc. They start integrating their metrics with the overall SDLC metric. So it's all about release speed, right? So how have we contributed to getting the release out the door in less time than last time, right? What was the payload of that release? Was it, more stories, more features than last time? Was it not? And tying the work that the testing or the team is doing to the overall value for the IT organization that are releasing the software. It usually shows that, and obviously the DORA metrics are a great guideline for that. Usually the quality organization tends to have a louder voice when they communicate things along those lines.
Daniel, I saw you nod in a couple of insights that Alex was sharing, and I'm curious to see or to hear from you in the larger teams that you're working with, or the projects that you may be working now. How do you balance automation and the human insight in your quality culture?
I think it's, like Alex said, a holistic approach to where there's always going to be a mix in our world of manual versus automation, just because of the nature of what we're dealing with. What we're using, though, and it's not stopping us from using automation tools. We use Katalon every day, and it's helping us with our manual testing, because we still need to repeat that test over and over again. Right. So whether or not it's automated on a scheduler, on a virtual machine, or running consistently, it's still something that, hey, we know we have to run this 15 times in the next 2 weeks. Let me write a script that'll help me get there faster than me doing it manually. So I think it is that combination of not just the processes being a holistic approach of both manual and automated, but having a tool that can assist with both sides and then allowing that to mature the team as well as the overall project.
Joe, have you seen or have you heard from any one of your community members any mishaps that or any missteps that they have had in implementing automation and balancing manual and automated testing that we can share with the audience so they could avoid?
Well, like anything, you need to set expectations up front with management. It's not a silver bullet. I know been doing automation for 25 years. It's the same old conversation. You know, you need to set expectations up front, what you can, what can't be automated. A lot of times people miss that way. Also, just educating their management what could be done and not just focusing on functional automation. A lot of times people just focus on functional automation and they miss out a whole bunch of opportunities to do maybe helping a business where you can't, maybe you can semi-automate something. Once again, I used to work for an insurance company and they used to write these huge policies just in order to get it to a point where they can rate it. So in different states, so they'd have like different vehicles added, different properties, and they were doing it all manually. And I was talking to them, say, hey, you can actually automate this up to the point where you click on the button to rate it, and then use your thinking to help do that. So I think a lot of people miss out on those opportunities as well, because they just focus so much on just functional automation. So definitely set expectations. Make sure it's not a silver bullet. Make sure that it's enhancing and not complicating your QA efforts. Sometimes people just think they can automate everything, and it's not really saving time because they're spending more time maintaining it than they would if they were just going to test it without a tool. Is another deal.
So yeah, automation is not magic. I'm gonna have to go ahead and fix my notes. I wonder if there is anyone in the audience going like, "Oh, shoot, yeah, you're right." But it's true. And then the point that I was trying to make earlier with Alex and this is actually before we move into the next topic, I want to ask all of you quick yes no question. I'm gonna start with the grid the way I see it here. I'm gonna go counterclockwise. Yes no question, Danielle. Do you think automated testing could survive without manual testing?
No.
All right. Rosie.
No.
Okay. And Alex?
No.
All right. And Joe, last but not least, do you think automated testing could survive without manual testing?
Pretty pro automation. I'd say maybe, but probably no. Probably. That's not, how do you know what you're automating if you don't know what you're automating, right?
Exactly. There you go.
And that's why AI, you know, a lot of people, sorry, go off on a tangent here. A lot of people.
No, go ahead.
Do it.
Replace me. But once again, I've been hearing that for 25 years. Automation is going to replace me. I had to develop a tester say, hey, Joe, stop telling developers they can use automation to help them test because it's going to put us out of a job. It never did. So I think people sometimes get overboard. You're always going to need a human, I think, in the loop, unless you're just building software for machines testing machines. If you're building software for people, I think you're always going to need people and a tester because you need a person to validate whatever it's doing or automating.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do agree with that. Well, sorry, Alex, I cut you off. What did you say?
No. I love that. I keep saying that. Like as long as we're building software for humans to use, a human has to at least touch it once, at the very least, right? When software is being built by machines for machines, then like I don't think we have a role there.
I mean, I want to say the perspective because it is. So, Joe, you say 25 years you've been talking about automation, and then in the last 3 years we have had this, and for lack of a better word, this overload of AI, quote unquote, solutions and technologies and everything. So it sounds. I mean, we're still having this conversation about whether automation is good or not. And I want to bring up a statistic that we saw in the report: 82% of people are still using manual testing. And are doing investment on manual testing rather than automation testing, regardless of the existence of all the tools that we have in the market right now. So 20 odd years after, we're still having this conversation of whether automation is going to take your job or not. And on top of that, we're adding AI to the equation where we're like, okay, hang on a minute, we're not even done with automation, trying to figure out if it's going to take our jobs or not. And now AI comes to the ballroom. So
it's curse of knowledge. I run webinars all the time, and I'm like, well, only 20-30% are automating, because I think everyone's doing it, and everyone's going to be doing AI, and it's not
Exactly.
to get caught up in our heads thinking, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
There's a lot of people don't want to invest in the upfront, overtime that it's, or not overtime, but like the overhead it's going to take at the beginning to build the automation test, and not realizing after they're done and easily maintainable what they're going to get back after that. So it's the upfront, but I agree. Automations, I think people are afraid it's going to take their job, not realizing it just makes you do things that are more important. But AI still needs data. You still have to give it data, so you're still touching it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So let's switch into why this is going to QA. We don't go into QA right now. All right. So let's talk about the future of QA teams for a moment, because another statistic that we got is that only 35% of organizations are seeing QA as a strategic asset. That is leaving a huge chunk of organizations not seeing QA as a strategic asset, but almost as a transactional thing where you go ahead and fix the bug and you're good to go. So So QA has been evolving for many years, as we have talked in the last 5 minutes, 20 odd years talking about automation. Now we're talking about AI. There is a lot changing, and I believe earlier in the previous session I talked about how companies who are seeing who are seeing QA as a strategic asset, they're seeing better results on all they're running linear operations. They're seeing improvement in their products. If they part of seeing QA as a strategic is bringing the customer to the loop. And Joe brought that cool story about GE. What is it like the main question is, if we want to make that shift, what are the skills and what is the mindset that we need to bring to our teams to be able to define tomorrow's QA team as a strategic asset to an organization? So what do we need to think about? What do we need to learn? What do we need to do?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Rosie.
As I was reading the report and going through it and thinking about things that like the community have been talking about and raising concern about, I think one of the biggest things is risks, and perhaps that's not specifically covered in the report, but especially with AI, there's a lot of inaccuracies, a lot of hallucinations, a lot of it's very powerful, but is it causing harm? Do we know it's causing harm, or what are the risks that it's bringing? There's some people who have been saying that actually it's the developers who should be more scared about their job than testers, because testers are going to be asking the right questions and looking for the problems and looking to point out all the problems that may occur. And there's also things like security risks with AI that we might not be fully aware of. So like if we're thinking of like the future of testing and QA, I think like how can we get better at identifying risks and ensuring that everything doesn't collapse around us as AI kind of takes over.
Anyone else would like to chime in?
Yeah, I agree. I know, once again, late 90s, it was all about testing and domain knowledge. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, we're developers now. We need to know how to do development. And they kind of lost the core testing skills. But now it seems with AI, it's shifting the other way, because if AI is going to do a lot of these easy to do coding, they can code just as well, if not better than a coder. Obviously, there's a lot of junk that's produced. Having domain knowledge, I think, is going to be a big deal going in the future. Also, I think Tariq King wrote an interesting article how we need to learn how to be more human, how to test human experiences in the age of AI. Because if AI is doing all the programming, all the other things, we should learn more about other skills like psychology, cognitive sciences, design thinking, to be able to assess AI, what it's doing from a human perspective, which it can't do. So I don't know, maybe that's further down the road, but that's what I would focus in on.
In that, and actually that's a cool point, because I wanted to ask the panel 2025, what is the skill set looking like? What is the all the skills and traits of, we talked earlier, and in the report we defined what we call the hybrid tester, which is someone who knows automated manual testing, knows all the traits, but not only is a tester but also a critical thinker, somebody who can actually who has problem solving skills, and to your point, Joe, is able to sit down and not just go ahead and fix a bug or discover a bug, but also think about, okay, what are the changes that could be applied to improve. So 2025, what do you think is the skill set looking like? What do people need to get ready for?
I think the UI UX component is definitely going to be more and more important. We have a really good UI UX team, and it's growing every day, and they hold community practices as well and do heuristic evaluations. They bring us through user journey mapping and show the teams exactly what we're looking at and how to not only just pick apart a screen and say, okay, this is in the wrong spot, or color scheme is a little bit off, but what is that true user experience like? And then how Joe said, like, really learning your customers. It's something I've kind of tried to do throughout my life, is if I'm working on a project, I want to know how the customer's using the tools, because how can you test it if you don't know how it's supposed to work or how it's supposed to feel or what they're expecting? So I think bringing that human aspect back into it, because we're still developing for a person. We're not developing for a machine or a robot. We're putting something in a product in front of someone that still needs to be able to get through their day-to-day operations without finding a bunch of errors. So, bringing that back into light, I think, is really important.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's that user experience and customer experience are going to be key drivers in sort of this new phase of quality engineering, right? It's those are aspects that haven't always been a focus, right? It's more, this is this other team that does it. But as part of understanding how the features that are being implemented are perceived by actual users, right? I think that's a component that's not going to be written in requirements. It's not going to be written anywhere. So you need to understand, going back to what we were discussing earlier, right? Need to understand how your users are experiencing as they touch the application or, touch the product that's being built, so that you can evaluate, you can assess what that looks like now with this new change that we're working on or this new feature, right? And then I think if we take that even further, thinking about specific skills, right? You mentioned manual testing, where critical thinking is absolutely a requirement. Then you have automation, and then now you have AI, right? AI augmented testing and all that. And I think those three sort of are core skills for the hybrid tester, as you were saying. I think to me, just like Joe was saying, for the last 25 plus years, we've been trying to get automation really become something a lot more than what it is today, and we failed. And similarly, a lot of quality engineering organizations have been trying for over 2 decades to upskill manual testers, to retrain them and make everybody contribute to automation, and that's also failed. We see in the stats you mentioned 82% still being manual testing. So I think my what I'm hopeful for is that AI will come in and will basically help us bridge the skill gaps, right? So let's say I'm a manual tester, and as Danielle was saying, maybe I need to retest the same feature 15 times in the next 2 weeks, but I don't know automation, right? Can AI basically help me do that without me having to learn how to do automation, right? Is that something that AI can come in to basically give me this additional skill without the expectation that I have to go through a course or through, learn how to code or anything like that. Because I feel like that was one of the big issues with automation, or with the expectation around automation, is that A lot of people thought, oh, you just teach testers, how to code, or you just teach testers, how to do that. The problem is you can teach anyone anything, but there's also the cultural aspect. There's also maybe the person doesn't want to do that. They have other interests, right? So you're dealing with people. You can't just make blanket assumptions and then try to push it down people's throats. It doesn't work that way. So there's change management. So my hope is that with AI, we will see this new wave of how testing professionals go about their jobs. Now they're being able to lean on AI to bridge certain gaps that they have, and like any of us have. And I don't have to worry about that because I know what to do. I know I need to re-execute that test 15 times. I just don't know how to automate. So can you go and help me do that in a way that I don't have to worry about it? So I think from a hybrid tester perspective, I feel like those skills are going to be required. But at the same time, I feel like AI will help us bridge those gaps and bring those skills to people that don't necessarily have.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I want to give the opportunity to Rosie and Joe to ask any questions that you may have to Alex and Danielle. We have a cool panel here in the closing minutes. Anything you want to pick their brains about to bring back to your communities?
For me, not so much pick the brains, but those just mentions now of UI, UX, and customer experience, and then AI and like the idea of like anyone can do AI, and perhaps there's an overarching theme of can testing be done in a more iterative approach? Like we don't have to like implement end-to-end automation. Remove that pressure from testing to do this huge project, and instead we take a smaller approach. Like with AI, it's all right. I've got these 15 tests that I need to get done, and that's all that I need to get done, and that seems like a very achievable task. And then alongside that, like when you're talking about UX and customer experience, my brain goes to community. So like if we're thinking of skills for the future of testers, I'm thinking we need community skills. We need to understand the whole picture. We need to talk to each other. We need to make this good human decisions. So yeah, it's not so much a question. It's just like where my mind was going from what you were talking about. So it's a mixture of AI and community. I think is potentially an interesting future to think about, and maybe you have thoughts from that perspective.
Me or someone in the panel?
Someone in the panel.
Joe, do you want to follow up?
I'll just agree with Rosie. She knows community. I have a smaller community, but I definitely agree. Getting people in there to talk about these things, bounce ideas off each other, experiment, have a safe space where they can maybe voice concerns or feel like they can ask any question, not be judged, and be able to get answers from different perspectives is a big win. Because a lot of times, sometimes we feel so siloed and alone, and having a community just bouncing ideas off of, especially working remotely or different countries, is a huge help overall. So definitely big win.
Absolutely. As we close, in a few words, let's start with Danielle. What would be one piece of advice that you would give all the QA leaders and also all the contributors that are listening to us today in terms of becoming more strategic and less of a let's just fix a bug? What if there is one
your
line
seat at the table. Yep, fight for your seat at the table and don't give up. So.
Don't give up. That's the spirit.
I have a question for Danielle. Sorry, before we're running out of time. A lot of people, when they work in regulatory environments like insurance or finance, even say defense or something, they say, "Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that." They use that as almost like a blocker for helping them automate things or implement AI or use quality. So, how are you able to fight that mindset, or is that even a mindset where you work?
Oh, it's a mindset. It depends on where in the world of what we're doing it can come into play, but I've been on a SAP project for the past 2 years. So automation is definitely key right now. AI, not so much. But they are developing internal AI tools. So, it's just how safe and protected can the data be? Can the results be? We have grading approaches to everything, across the different labs and stuff. So I was in regulatory and energy prior to that, to where, same type of thing, where there were certain projects that were like, nope, you'll never be able to automate this. And there's very few people that can even test it versus, 55 other testers that were running amok across the IT landscape. So, yeah.
So that goes to your point, fight for your seat at the table, to educate your team, let them know what is possible. Don't leave it up to someone else. Take charge of your career and your direction, what you're going to do, I think. Sure.
Absolutely. Rosie, what would be your advice for leaders out there?
I would go with find what's not working, trust your gut. If there's like something you're doing that you just don't enjoy and don't see the point of, and look for new ways of perhaps using AI to do testing. And I think there's a lot of potential testing practices that we still hold on to that we don't need to hold on to. And if we could be a bit more creative and find better ways to do them, then I would personally welcome that.
Excellent. Thank you. And Alex?
Yeah, so one quick little story that happened this week. One of our product managers was, posted on Slack how they were doing usability testing, and and basically it was a conversation with ChatGPT, right? And they were just doing this to prove a point. Like, she was very into why we need humans, like actual professional testers, do the usability testing first, and then actually get real user feedback. And then ChatGPT basically, as throughout the conversation, contradicted itself 3 times. So it was saying this field, and it was actually saying, like, this field doesn't feel like it will be, well received by the user, blah blah blah. And then, oh no, this is perfect. No, it's not. So so it's just something to a little anecdote to show that the job of the software testing professional is absolutely more relevant than ever in the world of AI, because I feel like it's really, with all this noise around what's possible, what's not possible, what's the potential of AI, the testing profession is the sounding board, the one that can really guide everybody else to what's real, what's not real, and what really matters to our end users. So I feel like it's an exciting time to be around in the quality profession.
Excellent. Thank you. Joe, final words?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of AI. It's not thinking. You're the one that does the thinking. Don't outsource your thinking to AI. Like Alex said, it's a big deal. But don't be afraid of it. I use it for everything. I use it for weird things and tell me what I should eat between calories, taking screenshots of things. I asked it, what kind of hairstyle should I get on my next haircut? So try that. You could burn me if it did well or not. But use it as like a peer programmer, almost a peer friend. Sometimes friends give bad advice. You're like, I better not listen to that. Sometimes friends give good advice, but you don't say, hey, I don't have any friends. So just don't be afraid of AI.
I asked the same thing about the haircut, and he told me, I'm sorry, I don't do miracles. I'm just an AI troll. All right, folks, thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of Season 2 finale for Quality Horizon 2025. To all the quality thinkers, testers, and leaders who join us today, you are the reason we do this. You are the ones shipping better products, smoother releases, and happier customers. Today, we had a great conversation. We unpacked a lot today, from the surprising persistence of manual testing in a world of automation tools to demystifying the role of AI in QA. And remember, it is not going to take your job as long as you use it responsibly, to practical strategies for scaling QA, building stronger teams, and turning quality into a business advantage. And throughout every session, I think and I hope one of the messages that you kept seeing coming through is that QA is no longer just a checkpoint. It is a catalyst for transformation. Like Daniel said, fight for your seat at the table. You have the power and you have the skills to do so. I hope you leave today not only with insights, but also with conviction that you have a critical voice in your organization's future, and the right tools, support, and mindset will help you ensure that seat at the table because you are driving quality. A huge thank you to all the speakers, all the partners, everyone behind the curtains who made this happen today, and especially to you, the 1,500 people who participated in the State of Software Quality Report 2025. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. Again, I am Lucio Daza. It has been an absolute pleasure to host you today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you in the next season of the Quality Horizon. Thank you so much, everyone.